Right now, the world isn't just reopening. Humanity is reawakening. This moment presents each of us with an opportunity to demonstrate who we are at our core. We are resilient humans, fueled by persistent optimism. Together, we can reimagine a better world, understanding that every action we take today, no matter how big or small, will contribute to a thriving new tomorrow. Let's come together and make a difference for the greater good. Our businesses, our communities, one another, and the promise of more together days ahead.
Ο όμιλος Σαμαράς και Συνεργάτες κατέχει ηγετική θέση στην ελληνική αγορά και αποτελεί τη μεγαλύτερη και αρτιότερη στελεχωμένη μελετητική συμβουλευτική ομάδα εταιριών. Οι 7 εταιρείες του ομίλου εξυπηρετούν ένα πελατολόγιο που φτάνει σήμερα τις 6.000 επιχειρήσεις, διεθνείς ομίλους αλλά και φορείς του δημοσίου, ενώ διαθέτουν ένα διευρυμένο χαρτοφυλάκιο 200 υπηρεσιών κάθε είδους και αντικειμένου στον κλάδο της βιομηχανίας, των logistics, της ενέργειας, του τουρισμού αλλά και των υποδομών. Είμαστε τεχνικός σύμβουλος στους μεγαλύτερους επιχειρηματικούς ομίλους, σε υπουργεία, περιφέρειες, δήμους, επιμελητήρια και άλλους θεσμικούς φορείς. Δραστηριοποιούμαστε πολύ δυναμικά και στο εξωτερικό. Συνέπεια, ταχύτητα και αξιοπιστία εξασφαλίζουν το βέλτιστο αποτέλεσμα για τους πελάτες μας.
There's a place in Italy where positive energy is produced. A family of 1,300 people which creates, designs, manufactures and exports the best of Italian style, quality and technology. Vimar. Positive energy.
This sea belongs to all of us. The municipality of Katerini, having 5 installations of electric wheelchairs on rails, C-track, makes its source accessible and friendly to our fellow human beings with disabilities and mobility difficulties.
Dear participants, but those of you who are here in person and those watching over the internet, dear friends, presidents of the chambers, it is a great pleasure and honor for me to welcome you on behalf of the co-organizers, the 4 chambers, 4 bilateral chambers, to this conference It is a great pleasure to be meeting again after 2 hard years. And also because those involved in the tourism industry agree that tourism, the steam engine of the Greek economy, is launching very successful course in spite of the pessimism as a result of the war in Ukraine. Tourism professionals also agree that the main aim is for us to attract visitors in the country, a large number of visitors, other than those visiting Greece for the sea and sun. I've been hearing a number of suggestions: reorganization of services, early information, reliable access to the media, and promotion of all alternative forms of tourism, persistence, patience, faith in the product, and affordable services. But let us give the floor to the experts who will share their views with us. And without further ado, I would like to invite our friend Stefanos Tsiritis, the Vice President of the German-Hellenic Chamber of Industry and Commerce, to address you and share with you some thoughts about the conference and the promotion of tourism in northern Greece. Stefanos, you have the floor. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, presidents of chambers and associations, dear guests, dear speakers, dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be welcoming you today on behalf of the German-Hellenic Chamber of Industry and Commerce to the 5th Tourism Conference entitled Northern Greece, a year-round destination. For the first time after the pandemic, I'm happy to have been given the opportunity to organize the 5th Tourism Conference in person, returning to a new normalcy, and I hope to a satisfactory tourist season. The 4 bilateral chambers, following 4 very successful tourism conferences in the past, are renewing their rendezvous this year with tourism professionals, supporting the tourism industry and showcasing best practices. At present, however, this joy is being mitigated by the new challenges starting from the energy crisis, a great challenge for profitability in enterprises in all sectors, and undoubtedly tourism, and much more so, taking into consideration recent developments with the war in Ukraine and Europe. Northern Greece has traditionally been hosting tourists from the plighted countries right now, and we look forward to positive developments that will help us meet our expectations. Tourism, one of the key sectors of the Greek economy, greatly affects other sectors, including real estate. According to statistics, international arrivals in Greece in 2021 showed a twofold increase compared to 2020, 14.7 million. Yet they were 51.3% less compared to the past. Revenues rose to 10.65 billion, yet 41.4% less than in the past. The forecast for this year estimate that the revenues will be something like that of 2019. The quality evaluation of Greek hotels is increasing according to customer satisfaction surveys. So the tourist product in Greece is being constantly upgraded, and this is essential for the further growth of the tourist industry. In view of increasing tourism competitiveness, the German-Hellenic Chamber of Industry and Commerce runs training programs in tourism and catering. The Dual Hellas project and reskilling and upskilling professionals, since education and training will help upgrade the tourist product. The energy crisis is another key issue for 2022. Our chamber will organize a mission in October 2022 on energy saving in buildings, presenting smart solutions that professionals might adopt in order to avail themselves of a shield against rising prices. I'm deeply convinced that tourism professionals will also respond to this challenge successfully. In conclusion, I wish the best of success to this 5th tourism conference organized by the 4 bilateral chambers. And I'd like to thank you once again for honoring this conference with your presence. Let us not forget about the sponsors. Always willing to contribute to this conference. I'd like to thank them very much. Deloitte and Retter law firm, Samaras and Associates, Vimar, and Wiserun. So Angelakis and Partners, Domes Resorts, the Chalkidiki Tourist Association, Kurtidis Group, Sonar Acoustics, the Met Hotel, and Tuvunu beverage company. Thank you once again from the bottom of my heart.
Ευχαριστώ θερμά τους
Thank you to the Vice President of the French-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Vice President of the German-Hellenic Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Our first session will be on Zoom mostly. Let me ask the facilitator, Dimitris Pefanis, Director of Financial and Business Content, CNN.gr. The session will be about promoting Greece amidst global instability. I'd like to ask the technicians to take on this task. Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and for inviting me to moderate such an interesting panel. As we've just heard, the first messages about tourism are encouraging, but we shouldn't forget that we're living in strange times. So discussing this issue with experts who are very well versed in both domestic We have a very interesting set of panelists, and without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Ms. Gereku. Let me ask you my first question. It is about the communication strategy of the GNTO. We have certain geopolitical developments and the loss of the tourist markets of Russia and Ukraine. Having said this, how will GNTO shape its communication strategy for 2022? Congratulations to the organizers. This is an excellent meeting, a very interesting one. This question is of concern for tourism globally. For Greece, markets like Ukraine and Russia may have been lost for this year. Russia is one of the top sources of visitors for Greece, 7 million. There was also a great inflow from Ukraine. For the past 2 years, we had to cope with the COVID challenge. Now with the humanitarian crisis of this absurd war, and we have learned how to be flexible. It's clear that Greece has retained its ranking among the top destinations because both the public and the private sector have embarked on a very successful strategy. Neighboring countries such as Bulgaria, Romania, etc., Poland, although they are affected indeed, Poland in particular, have been targeted by our promotional campaigns and co-advertisement with tour operators. We do not want to lose this market, although there is a decrease in the case of Poland in particular. Our communication campaigns are also targeting other big markets. There's a dynamic flow from the US, 6 flights weekly, 2 from Canada. We've also targeted the UK with a lot of emphasis, and the messages we're receiving are very encouraging. This has been proven during the Easter holidays, and particularly now in early May. 1 million bookings have already been confirmed for the first half of May from Germany, France, and the UK. So advertisement, co-advertisement, dynamic targeting of Austria, Belgium, Italy, the Nordic countries, and of course overseas, the US and Canada. We're expecting a lot from both these big countries. There is a great inflow in the country. Certain reservations because of the war, of course, but little by little this is being overcome. Dynamic demand from both Greek Americans and the Canadians themselves. So a very dynamic strategy vis-à-vis these two markets. And all of the regions will step up their promotional campaigns for winter months. We're also reopening our offices in Spain in order to reach the Latin American market. I have measurable data about love of these countries for Greek history, although transportation is an issue. So our Spanish office will help us promote the country to Latin America. Extension of the tourist season is also key. 3 campaigns already. All You Want Is Greece has entered its new season. The Greek End has become a brand. City break destinations for Athens and Thessaloniki is highly promising, and we'll spread that to other towns and cities as well. Winter tourism campaign for mainland Greece. We need to look at Greece as a destination offering alternative forms of tourism with a highly local flavor and the link of hospitality with Greek cuisine and culture. Visit Greece is a communication weapon for us. Visit Up is a tool we offer professionals and the regions so they can promote their own material. We had spectacular posts on the social media from all over Greece. Cave in Prosostani, thermal springs on Samothraki. So there's a very broad range of services and products promoted. We try to adopt a comprehensive approach, although our islands are still leaders as tourism destinations. There's more than the islands, particularly the millennials, seeking a more personal experience with local destinations, with locality. I want to feel locals for some days and come in contact with nature. Of course, the results cannot be achieved overnight, although our strategy is oriented to this. Thank you very much, Ms. Gereku, for this presentation. A very interesting landscape was one you described. There are positive images, quite a few, and under certain conditions, Greece can not just respond to the challenges, but upgrade and improve its tourist product compared to the past. If I may, I think it would be unfair not to mention that we also had a special campaign since 2021 targeting the North Aegean islands so that we could make up for the damages as a result of the refugee wave. We're renewing it this year, and we're running this campaign in a very dynamic way.
So we're going to continue talking about the challenges facing Greek companies, and now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Theodoros Papakostandinu, who has a broad knowledge on this fact. Mr. Papakostandinu, welcome, and I'd like to ask you, based on your experience and the surveys that you have conducted, which do you believe are the greatest challenges that tourism enterprises are facing currently in Greece? And how can they redefine their own entrepreneurial business models in order to address these? Thank you, Mr. Pefanis. Good evening to all the participants, and thank you to the organizers for honoring me with this invitation. A very interesting question indeed. We need to be honest. The truth is, the Greek businesses are coming out of the crisis and the COVID pandemic negatively effective, and on a short-term level, they have to address some initial challenges, such as being able to cover the obligations, the financial obligations that they're having to deal with, the higher prices in energy, food, construction costs, renovation costs. At the same time, the crisis, the war in Ukraine, may not have a grave impact on Greek tourism, and that is what we hope. But nevertheless, it will be affecting specific destinations and specific businesses, and that will be an additional challenge indeed. I hope and I believe that all these estimates for 2022 will actually come true, and it will indeed be a good year for Greek tourism. both with regard to visitor numbers and revenue, show that these short-term challenges, as I like to call them, can be successfully addressed by Greek businesses. On the other hand, when speaking about business models, I think it's better to look to the future and examine the situation on a long-term basis. The COVID pandemic accelerated certain developments which had already been present prior to the pandemic, and it also brought to light new trends in the tourism sector. Let me begin by the changes in consumer habits and preferences. For example, before the pandemic, and now even more so, we see that all consumers, including travelers, are looking for experiences rather than commodities, and personalized ones as such. We also see that travelers are becoming much more demanding, and that they can now share information and receive information from other visitors very quickly. So we have this loop of experiences of traveling, which means that at the end of the day, online travel agency ratings and reviews become much more important than any other effort to promote tourism businesses. What we also see in addition is a trend being created whereby people feel nowadays that they must enjoy every second of their life. And this, over the next few years, may mean that more people will want to travel and have lifelong experiences, meet people that they have not seen for a long time, and have some unforgettable experiences. This is a great opportunity, but also a huge challenge for Greek tourism and every business involved in the sector. So over the next 2 or 3 years, this could be an opportunity for us to get into the heart of our visitors. And on the other hand, we need to avoid any mistakes because we might miss out on this opportunity. Changes in employment need to be taken into account. We have people also now mixing business and leisure travel. There's a focus on the environment and passion for technology, people wanting to be actively involved in what is going on. All these trends are creating new customer segments and new challenges which need to be taken advantage of. In addition, a very important development we see affecting tourism worldwide right now and in the future is the lack of specialized and suitably qualified staff. This war of talent is becoming much more intense, and based on international surveys, tourism in general, not only in Greece, is one of the sectors which presents the least attractiveness for young people, and one of the sectors which is going to be most affected by this war of talent. So what can tourism-related businesses do in Greece and abroad to deal with this? Mrs. Gerekou spoke about flexibility. We need this in Greek businesses also. We need to move away from the sea and sun model, from having very specific collaborations and targeting specific geographical markets. We need to be able to address new market segments as they're being created, geographical markets with new values and new experiences to offer by hotels and other tourism enterprises. Another important thing that has to be taken into account is the need to take advantage of technology, social media, and digital media for selling, for promotion purposes. Sustainability as a term needs to be embraced by all so that we are able to effectively target new sectors of the market and the demands of our consumers and clients, and also as a means to deal with the prices and energy hikes that we see, price hikes that we see in the field of energy and in other fields. Finally, Greek businesses also need to design strategies on a national and individual level with regard to human resources and their availability in the field of tourism. Thank you. Thank you very much. You put forward a whole range of very significant challenges which need to be looked at not only on a short term but also on a long term basis. And we see how things are changing in that respect. So, to deal with these challenges, it's good to learn from lessons that we see abroad. And for that reason, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Nektarios Lukopandis, who has extensive experience from working in Greece and abroad in the hotel sector. He is also a professor at one of the best recognized international schools of tourism. Mr. Lukopandis, what do you believe are the most important differences between Greece and Greek and foreign businesses with regard to the way in which we manage the hotel experience vis-a-vis our clients? Good afternoon from Montreux in Switzerland. Thank you very much for your invitation. I'm delighted to be with you. I don't think that there are great differences in customer satisfaction and travel experience between countries. If there is any such difference, it has to do with how we manage these perceptions. Customer satisfaction is, of course, a very important part of the travel experience, and it has to do with the quality of services that travelers enjoy. So, starting with hospitality services and looking at the competitiveness map, I believe that Greece is highly competitive in this respect. I would say it is a pioneer. It is the country par excellence with regard to hospitality and services in the tourism sector, which is part of our culture. Customer satisfaction, nevertheless, on an individual basis is not enough. Why? There are two reasons. Clients are not always satisfied for the right reasons. Different things satisfy different clients, after all. So, somebody who is looking for opportunities will be more pleased when he has a discount, whereas
Αλλά αυτά δεν έχουν καμιά σημασία. Το πιο σημαντικό
shy consumer will be more happy with the business when nobody bothers him and lets him get on with his business.
There's a second reason. If we look at customer satisfaction only, we're not really measuring satisfaction. The world is full of products and services that compete with each other to attract clients' attention. Most services offer a degree of satisfaction, a satisfactory experience. Satisfaction, however, is not a key to differentiation, diversification. It doesn't help a business or an undertaking stand out, nor can it help long-term partnerships. You need to offer tourists unforgettable experiences in order to build a relation with them, not just satisfaction or a satisfactory level. So we shouldn't just be thinking about satisfying customers, but rather attracting them by building a rapport with them, an emotional tie. Guess, how do you ever see service providers on an individual basis? They adopt an integrated approach. Good job in a part of an organization may be blemished by a failure in another part of the organization. And the service can be a failure of the organization in its entirety or the destination itself. I may have a wonderful restaurant, a wonderful location. If I get poor services while leaving the country at the airport, I may get a nasty impression, which I will be carrying with me. This is why it's necessary to make sure that all services across the chain of the travel experience, think about it as a puzzle. before the visitor comes, during their stay, and after their departure need to be linked. So every service provider needs to understand this, be them government organizations, citizens, private entrepreneurs, all of us united proudly support our countries or cities' efforts to provide an unforgettable experience to visitors.
Thank you very much. And I would like to reiterate what you said about offering somebody an overall experience as a visitor. And I would like to go back to Mrs. Gereku in relation to this. Potentially the most important challenge for our country now is a shift to high quality tourism. At the same time, we want to offer an integrated holistic tourism product, which is linked to thematic tourism, primary production, etc., etc. How can we achieve this and become, let's say, the absolute destination with regard to well-being? Thank you. I am delighted you're bringing this topic up. In a country which I consider is not a mass production country, but a premium country. What do I mean by this? A small country that can offer exceptionally high quality products which are highly differentiated with regard to its destinations. Each destination has its own capabilities. In Greece, we know there is an unbelievable broad range of unique experiences that it can offer to customers, to visitors, and that's what we're aiming at. Quality, therefore, is what we need to be aiming for. We need to move on from the pre-COVID era where the quantity of people was considered important. Of course, it is important still, but what is even more important is the quality of services with regard to the street changes that the professor mentioned, but also our visitors need to be more aware of the reasons why they choose to come to Greece and what it can offer them with regard to a holistic travel experience, something that another destination cannot offer them. So this has to do with our advertising campaign and how we can promote this and how we can market Greece through a new holistic brand under the new circumstances, under the current circumstances. So the FZIN model, this model of well-being, is basically addressing a holistic experience, 3 levels of a broader holistic euphoria. So when our new travelers, as we see from our surveys, is looking for something much more for a unique overall holistic experience, then we can offer them these 3 levels of our experience through a rationale of well-being, but even more than that, which is part of the Greek philosophy. How can we do this? We need to coordinate all the relevant initiatives, the state sector, the private sector, local authorities, and all stakeholders, so that we all agree that Greece is a country whose way of life and what it has to offer to tourists is exactly what the travelers are looking for. All you want is Greece. That is the message. In order to show what exactly we mean at the Greek Tourism Organization, we have presented the first symposium with the title Greece, the Country of Well-Being, and the subtitle, The Sustainable Economy of Hospitality. I like the term hospitality, and linking this to Greek food and Greek civilization. Our intangible cultural assets, in addition to our civilization, are exceptional tools that our country has to offer. And EOT is promoting precisely this strategy of a different Greece, another Greece that people have not been aware of so far, which has not been promoted so far. So the crisis now is being viewed as an opportunity to do so. I was delighted to see Mr. Thanos and Mr. Dzidzi-Kostas, who are going to be participating in this conference. We spoke with them at the symposium concerning well-being and how the term was used by Alexander the Great when speaking about Aristotle. We need to use these communication models as tools in order to attract future travelers to Greece as a tourism destination. So I'd like to ask, what is needed in order to promote Greece and enhance Greece as an investment destination? And how can the relevant resources be put to best use in order to improve the tourism product and attract investments at the same time? Thank you very much for your very important question. Let me start with the second part of the question and the program Greece 2.0 and using the resilience and recovery fund resources to this aim. We need to, first of all, identify the objective of Greek tourism. On the one hand, we need to expand the seasonal basis of tourism and take advantage of its potential and have a more rational distribution of visitors all over Greece so that we don't have the overabundance of tourism in certain areas, and at the same time, in order to distribute the benefits of tourism in a more rational way all over the country and to more regional areas in particular. For this purpose, we need to keep in mind that it's good to have an additional number of visitors, but this needs to be done in accordance with the three criteria I've just mentioned. And I believe that the program Greece 2.0 is moving in the right direction. Investments and programs included therein are numerous. It promotes alternative products, differentiation of Greek tourism products. It aims at promoting Greek tourism, for example, by enhancing the digital transformation of various stakeholders such as GTO and the destination management and marketing offices in specific destinations, and also addresses very significant issues, I believe, such as infrastructure and other complementary products and sectors such as agri-nutrition and culture, tourism ports, mountainous tourism, etc. So it is very important for every private enterprise and every business to take advantage of these programs, such as the human resource program also that I have not mentioned. This is the opportunity of Greece, not only in order to have short-term gain, either financial or political, but it is a way of changing Greece in the tourism sector on a broader scale. Moving on to investments, the program Greece 2.0, I believe, is a very important tool for attractive investment. We could even describe it as an orgasm of investments, transactions. We see new players in the field, new international agencies taking part. Investment funds are nowadays looking at Greece as an attractive destination. On the other hand, companies which also have part of which is also based in Greece also are viewing such opportunities positively. So we see this inherent potential, these prospects in the field of Greek tourism, and what is required for these investments to take place is stability with regards to public administration and taxation policies, Reforms are also needed, and we go back to the Greece 2.0 program, reforms in the investment program, acceleration of the relevant policies and processes, things that we all know which need to be implemented. And we see positive steps being taken in this respect also. And since we are also talking about the element of risk, apart from the element of return, investors need to feel that there's a reduced level of risk and a banking sector that can indeed support investments. The credit ratings of Greece also need to be stable. In this way, I believe, and with a long-term policy with regard to investments that will show respect for the environment, local communities in Greece, in order to avoid errors committed by other countries which manage to attract very significant investments, but on the other hand, cause damage to their country. This needs to be taken into account so that Greece can continue along the road it has already been covering with regard to attracting investments in the field of tourism and what it has achieved so far in this respect. Thank you very much. We have unfortunately taken up more time than we had allocated for this session. So one final question to Mr. Lycopandis. And a question which has to do with northern Greece, since this is the geographical location of the conference. What about the particular characteristics of northern Greece? Where do you think we need to focus with regard to its promotion so that the entrepreneurs of northern Greece can improve their image abroad and support tourism activities that can make the difference? Mr. Lycopandis, could you please also try to be as brief as possible? Yes, thank you. I had the opportunity to work in Pilion, in Zagorochoria, and as far as Alexandroupoli when I was working in Greece. Northern Greece is very varied and impressive, as is the rest of Greece, and similar in beauty to Switzerland on many occasions. What I believe needs to be done is to find the right balance. Each region has its own characteristics of beauty, and this should determine the way it is promoted. We first need to understand the DNA of each region, destination, city, its advantages, its unique properties. And I'm not talking about overlooking its weaknesses, but to focus on its strengths. What makes people want to live in these areas? Why are the local people there? Why would somebody want to invest or visit these areas? The values, the convictions of the local communities, how we perceive these areas, all this is important with regard to understanding the DNA of a destination. Secondly, we need to assess the current situation with regard to the tourism ecosystem of each area. That is, to find any gaps and opportunities for further investment and development. And that has to do with employment, infrastructure, access, and the environment. We then can decide on whether we should focus on business markets, leisure markets, or a combination of the two. When we know who we want to attract, then the promotion, as Mrs. Gerekou said, can be much more targeted. If we look at surveys that have been carried out by the European Travel Commission, those resorts that will attract the most visitors are those that will fulfill protocols of cleaning, sustainability, environmentally friendly trips. Many visitors are looking at the environmental initiatives of companies. Sustainability, as was mentioned, is a key term for the new generation, Generation Y, Generation Z. They're very sensitive to these issues. Now, with regard to promotion and what we need to focus on, Based on what I have experienced in beautiful northern Greece, is focusing on nature, how to enjoy nature and the local culture, how to get an authentic experience, local food, local wine, and activities that can take place throughout the year. Northern Greece has the opportunity to organize many different types of hiking activities, biking, hiking, tours, family tours, group tours, weddings, sports activities, cultural events. There are many opportunities. But as I said, this also has to be correlated with the DNA of each region and what it has to offer.
Να σας καλησπέρα και από μένα, να σας συστήσω στο πάνελ μας η κυρία Λόρα Αργυροπούλου, που είναι και διαζώσης μαζί μας. Είναι Marketing and Communication Strategist της WiseRAM. Ο κύριος Αλέξανδρος Θάνος, Αντιπεριφερειάρχης Τουρισμού της Περιφέρειας Κεντρικής Μακεδονίας. Στο πάνελ μας επίσης διαδικτυακά θα είναι ο κύριος Ανδρέας Παπαμεμίκος, ο οποίος είναι δικηγόρος, συνιδρυτής και πάρτνερ της δικηγορικής εταιρείας Ritor, και η κυρία Μαρία Κωνσταντόγλου, Διευθύνουσα Σύμβουλος του Αναπτυξιακού Οργανισμού της Περιφέρειας Βορείου Αιγαίου. Θα επιλέξω να ξεκινήσω τις ερωτήσεις που θα θέλαμε να υποβάλουμε από την κυρία Αργυροπούλου. Η υπηρετική Ελλάδα έχει προορισμούς που μπορούν να φέρουν επισκέπτες και εκτός σεζόν. Με τι ενέργειες μπορεί να επιτευχθεί κάτι τέτοιο και ποια παραδείγματα θα μπορούσατε να μας φέρετε?
Καλησπέρα και από μένα. Να πω λίγο ότι εκπροσωπώ την εταιρεία WiseRAM. Για όσους δεν γνωρίζουν, είναι εταιρεία συμβούλου τουριστικής ανάπτυξης. Οι πελάτες μας ουσιαστικά είναι προορισμοί, είναι δήμοι. Έχουμε τη χαρά να συνεργαζόμαστε με το Δήμο Ιαννητών, με το Δήμο Καστοριάς, με το Δήμο Δύο Λίμπου, με το Δήμο Κατερίνης. Είναι και εδώ η Αντιδήμαρχος Τουρισμού, κυρία Τερζίδου, μαζί μας. Και έχουμε και τη χαρά να πούμε ότι συνεργαζόμαστε και με το Δήμο Βελβεντού. Επίσης, ο Αντιδήμαρχος κύριος Καμκούτης είναι εδώ. Έχουμε δηλαδή ένα διευρυμένο πελατολόγιο στη Βόρεια Ελλάδα. Η στόχευση αυτή της Βόρειας Ελλάδας δεν έγινε τυχαία, καθώς έχουμε μια προγενέστερη εμπειρία, ειδικά με το πώς να χειριστούμε τους τουρίστες που έρχονται από τις γειτονιάζουσες χώρες. Και αυτό που πάντα σκεφτόμαστε είναι ότι το προφίλ της Βόρειας Ελλάδας δεν είναι αυτό το προφίλ, το ήλιος, θάλασσα που υπάρχει ήδη στην Ελλάδα, το μοντέλο της Μυκόνου, της Σαντορίνης και της Κρήτης. Άρα, τι είναι αυτό που κάνουμε εμείς με τους προορισμούς? Βλέπουμε ποια είναι αυτά τα δυνατά χαρακτηριστικά, βλέπουμε και το DNA, όπως αναφέρθηκε και στο προηγούμενο πάνελ, και προσπαθούμε να δούμε ποια είναι αυτά τα στοιχεία τα οποία μπορούμε να αναδείξουμε καθ' όλη τη διάρκεια του χρόνου, ώστε να μπορούμε να προσελκύουμε τουρίστες. Άκουσα για όλες αυτές τις προσπάθειες που ανέφερε και η κυρία Γκερέκου, και έγινε και μάλιστα και η καμπάνια, το ΕΟΤ, το We Do Have a Winter, το οποίο και συγχαίρω γι' αυτό, γιατί εμάς στη Βόρεια Ελλάδα πάντα περιμέναμε αυτό. Πότε η Νότια Ελλάδα και η Αθήνα θα δώσει την προσοχή και τα φώτα σε εμάς, που πραγματικά το τοπίο είναι μαγικό και μπορεί να προσελκύσει ένα πολύ ειδικό κοινό τουριστών με ένα πολύ υψηλό επίπεδο εισοδήματος στην Ελλάδα που μπορεί να καταναλώσει. Πιστεύουμε ότι και αυτό που κάνουμε με τους πελάτες μας είναι να βλέπουμε ποια είναι αυτά τα πλεονεκτήματα και τη ειδίκευση που έχει.
Advantages and the specificities to promote theme destinations, experience aspect on the rise with the pandemic. In our campaigns and in our strategic planning for each municipality, we try to promote around depending on their specificities, depending on the DNA of the destination, depending on the diversity. It is undoubtedly we put together actions and strategic partnerships, as well as promotional campaigns. Ms. Konstantoglou, it's a great pleasure for us to have you with us. I'd like to know the following. The North Aegean islands have been severely hit by the refugee crisis. To what extent do you think that the problems have been overcome as we're speaking, and what should be done to heal the wounds to their image? Well, good evening, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for this invitation to North Aegean. It is a great honor for us, and for me in particular, to be taking part in this conference representing North Aegean and the newly established development company for the region of North Aegean. The Ministry of Interior it was an initiative of the Ministry of the Interior. Congratulations on this organization in spite of the problems. Shortly after the pandemic, it is hard to put together hybrid conferences. They're very challenging. And with regard to the refugee issue, I'm going to be asked this question in relation to North Aegean. Nevertheless, the North Aegean has been through successive crises in recent years, starting with the economic crisis in 2010, and then we were faced with the refugee crisis. Following that, we were faced with the pandemic. Now we're faced with a war. The situation on the islands is much better with regard to the refugee situation. In 2015, 1 million refugees through Lesbos. Right next to the city of 35,000 population, there was a camp accommodating 25,000 refugees. However, to congratulate the government right now, this 25,000 camp only accommodates 1,100 individuals. This is an achievement for us. Population accommodated in camps diminished significantly. Both Chios and Lesbos. The local inhabitants have been affected hardly. The islands acquired an image that was not wanted. All three islands, Lesbos, Chios, and Samos, are large islands. On Lesbos, for instance, from Mytilene to Sigri, from east to west, the distance is 120 kilometers. There's a camp located on the center of the island. There are not other camps around. And the same is true for Lesbos, for Chios and Samos. So the image that was projected was not actually representative of the reality. I would like to ask you to take note of this. So the situation is very much better. I'd like to congratulate businessmen on all islands because they managed to survive under very adverse conditions. This is a true accomplishment. Hoteliers on the islands tend to say, actually for hoteliers sail operating on those islands, the number of visitors arriving is truly hard. They need to attract tourists and keep them. So they need to provide high quality services and true hospitality. This is what they managed to do. We are actually implementing a customer satisfaction survey starting in 2018, and we see repeat visits to the islands in spite of the expensive airfares and the crisis. So there's something attractive about these islands. Let me ask you a second question. One of the wonderful destinations in the region of North Aegean is Aistratis, which will be transformed into an autonomous island energy-wise. This is a very interesting project in your region. Could you tell us more about the current state of the project and the benefits that are expected to be reaped for tourism? Aistratis is a very special island. It is special in the history of Greece overall. The wonderful natural landscape, hospitable inhabitants, 300 in total. This is a pioneering project for inhabitants of islands that live in isolated Aegean island. Over 8.5 million euro is the budget of the project. 1 month ago, the contract was signed, so the tender has been completed, and the tender is about to start the operations. The project is expected to be completed in 1 year's time. Aistratis will become completely autonomous energy-wise, and that could be an interesting destination for Europe as a whole. We have lots of faith in this project in North Aegean. A question for Mr. Thanos. In addition to head of tourism sector, he's a sailor, and I bet he's familiar with Aistratis. Let me ask you the following. Some of the most popular destinations in northern Greece are in the region of Central Macedonia. However, we often see that the infrastructure is strained, thus blemishing the image of the region and preventing it from attracting high-end tourists. What are the priority projects for the region, and what will their impact be? Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Tourism professionals and all those involved in extrovert projects do need to work together with the region and align themselves with the regional policy. So it's important not just to discuss about this, but also set the agenda for the future. I love sailing indeed, but I'm not really familiar with the North Aegean. It would be interesting to visit it shortly. The region of Central Macedonia and the regional governor, Mr. Tzitzikostas, has given a fresh breath to the sector. 2.3 billion revenue, some 20% increase in the country's GDP, in the region's GDP in 2018. The number of visitors does not suffice. Tourists need to bring added value to the region. This means balanced distribution of visitors across Central Macedonia. And the appropriate infrastructure. I could speak long about this. What is important for you to know is that we are going through critical times. The new programming period is ahead. So the region of Central Macedonia and the regional governor are planning the new generation of projects combining tourist promotion and spatial infrastructure, strategic frameworks, including also cultural sites. The Steps of Apostle Paul is just one of these projects, and we're trying to secure funding for this, including infrastructure in cooperation with the Ministry of Culture. We have resources such as Mount Olympus or ski resorts that we need to approach differently. Ski resorts may be adventure parks in the summer, so we need infrastructure and entrepreneurs that share this approach. We need to move away from the sea and sand concept in order to build this new tourist narrative. Central Macedonia is part of this framework, together with Fraport and Port Authority of Thessaloniki. We need to open this infrastructure more. We're talking about the first transatlantic link with Fraport, and in cooperation with the ministry, I expect that we will achieve it in 2023. With the Port Authority of Thessaloniki, we were in a big fair in the US. There are saturated destinations, cruising destinations, whereas Central Macedonia, Thessaloniki in particular, may attract, due to its multifaceted advantages, share of this cruise market. 80% of the visitors come by land, and this is a competitive advantage. We're discussing with Mr. Tasios and the tourist organizations about ways to increase our penetration rate towards Western Europe, not just in the Balkans. We need a good network. We need to make the best of the resources available, and we need to plan for the decade to come, planning ahead of events, certain points in time, certain locations. We have identified that there is a diminution of tourist inflows and degradation of resources. Thank you very much. Mr. Papamimikos, welcome to this panel. I'd like to ask you the following. You are a rooted inhabitant of Thessaloniki with a long experience in politics. What sites, what locations in the city and its hinterland are those with the greatest impact, and what would you improve? What are the smart moves, in other ways, that would boost local tourism? Thank you for the invitation. Let me congratulate the organizers and say hello to all of our guests. Let me start with a rhetoric question. Is Thessaloniki a tourist destination? Yes, it is. We firmly think so. Is it of world renown? However, I don't think so. Has our branding been successful? I don't think so. So let me start with a self-evident point. I believe that we need to promote and showcase Thessaloniki as a tourist destination through proper branding and planning. We want Thessaloniki to be not just a domestic tourist destination, increase our volumes in the Balkans, and then expand to other countries. We need to keep in mind, however, that in recent years, several steps have been made in this direction. With the help of Mr. Thanos and under the direction of Mr. Dzikostas in the region of Central Macedonia, And also under Mr. Boutares' term as a mayor, together with the deputy mayor, Mr. Pengas at the time. And I think that the current administration will make the best of this legacy. In order to avoid fancy plans, I believe we should start from things that are self-evident. We need to build a brand for the city as a tourist destination and build a narrative on this. More specifically, the city is currently a city break destination. I think we all agree on that. What else can this city offer? It offers high-quality entertainment, and it is a culinary destination. People think that the inhabitants of Thessaloniki spend their time drinking frappe coffee. This may not be true, but we know how to offer high-quality services in cafeterias, and we want tourists will have a good time here, enjoy a special cuisine, spend an enjoyable night, and a couple of days in the city. So what we were being accused of is an important advantage to my eyes, and we need to build strategies to promote that. Thessaloniki should also be promoted as a cultural and religious destination. Of many successful examples. The Jews that are a living history in the city, and the Turks, who used to visit Thessaloniki frequently during the Boutares term. Thessaloniki is a conference destination as well. And following the transformation of the Thessaloniki International Fair, the upcoming transformation, it will attract a higher share of conference tourism. All of this, however, should be part of a common framework, a common narrative, not be fragmented. What Mr. Thanos was saying, a combination of infrastructure projects and tourist campaign for Central Macedonia. I believe this is key, and Mr. Ditsikostas has been pretty successful in that. Other smart moves, let me just mention one. I think Thessaloniki should also acquire a modern digital identity. What do I mean by that? We're living at a time when most of our moves are being made digitally. So we need to support tourist undertakings in order to either learn or how to use modern digital tools or receive some sort of financial support. And then the development of digital marketing. We want to invest in cultural tourism. We will launch an aggressive campaign among the Jews or the Turks, not the Chinese. Number 3, broadband promotion, 5 gigabytes, and free Wi-Fi access at specific locations in the city where there are tourist attractions. Think of a tourist that goes sightseeing, takes a selfie, uploads it on the Instagram or other social media, and sends it. They will be ambassadors for our city among their friends and family. Finally, I would suggest that we develop the so-called info points, not just at the entrance of the city, but in several parts of it, tourists, citizens and visitors should have access just in order to browse among the interesting sites or have access to public services. A person may need to go to a hospital or issue a certificate. So access to info points is also important to my eyes. These are some of the steps, some smart solutions that will provide added value. Thank you very much. Speaking about infrastructure, I'd like to ask Ms. Argyropoulou, to what extent will the improvement of road networks and airports boost Thessaloniki as a tourist destination?
This question, I think, is closely tied to what Mr. Thanis said, talking about the infrastructure in northern Greece, and Mrs. Gerek also spoke about boosting road tourism in the Balkans and with regard to tourists from Poland. Well, let me say that I did some research on road tourism before I came here today. The most recent survey of INSET, covering the period up to 2019, said that 35% of arrivals come by road to Greece. In 2021, 1 year after the summer of COVID management measures, where borders were open or closed, Athens gave a different signal, and they didn't know what to do at the Bramachon borders. We had a drop of 68% in road tourism in 2021, which meant that the Balkans, which were the number one market for northern Greece, chose to come, but not by road, but by plane. And of course, then there was the issue of the airport. We have a private company which is managing a number of airports in Greece. Nevertheless, there are destinations which have a very have very rich resources from a tourism perspective. But with regard to the airports or access, there are many problems. And the current infrastructure has been devalued by the national infrastructure system. Sometimes we think that sun and sea are enough, and we don't need to take any other measures. We see, of course, some private initiatives that we warmly congratulate with regard to public and private partnerships. And these private initiatives spend a lot of money on marketing and quality of services with regard to these airports. And we believe that this could be considered a package in itself that does not require further contribution by the state. But what I mean to say is that we need to improve the quality of promotion, the quality of services. The first point of arrival of visitors to Greece, as soon as they set foot in the country, they need to understand what the tourism product they will enjoy is going to be. I believe that you have all traveled in the Balkans, and you all have the experience of traveling in Greece right after you have arrived in the country. Arriving in Thessaloniki, Kastorai, Ioannina is not the final point of destination point. It also has to do with the roads. You have to travel up until you get to your final destination. So the road infrastructure all over the country needs to be looked at, since transportation is also part of the tourist experience. Romania, Poland, Bulgaria. Romania is number one market. Poland and Bulgaria, we believe, are going to be very significant customers this year. As Ms. Margereku mentioned, road is an easy and secure way for them to travel. And for us in northern Greece, it's vitally important to be able to have all this tourism product reflect the quality of services that can be provided to our visitors. So from the corner of your eye, I see that you've got your eye on the Deputy Regional Governor. I would like to ask a similar question to Mrs. Konstantoglou. One of the main prerequisites of tourism development has to do with the existence of suitable means of transport. Are you satisfied with the transport connections between your region and the rest of the country? And do you believe that new points of transport need to be created both by air and by sea in order to improve visitor access? Well, this is an issue that is of vital importance to Northern Aegean and a huge problem at the same time. We are a regional area, and the only way you can get to our islands is either by sea or by air. For most islands, we have 2 or 3 flights per day, Sky Express and Aegean, throughout the year. And there is a connection by ship daily to all islands, but the problem has to do with the ticket prices. The ticket prices put off tourists when they think of coming to the Northern Aegean. We are not the strongest tourist destinations, which means that during the main tourist season, the peak season, we do not have that many charter flights. We will hope that Limnos will have about 15 charters this year. Samos does much better than us. Chios has a very significant airport, and it is further developing. Limnos has about 10 charters a week this summer, but this is a limited number, and the cost is very high. So that's a problem that needs to be resolved in a way. And it is an issue that cannot really be resolved by the regional authorities. Ticket prices mainly have to do with the companies. It's different for regional authorities to look at the road network, the points of entry, the border, or projects that have to be carried out at airports. Fraport, for example, has completed 2 airports in our region, Lesbos and Samos, which are extremely good now. The airport of Chios is currently being upgraded. However, I agree, I repeat, ticket prices do not have to do with the regional authority decisions. Mr. Thanos said that there needs to be an integrated package offered by the region, and of course, some of the infrastructure that has to do with transport plays a very significant role in the upgrading of tourism. However, businesses and chambers, as in the case of this conference, need to examine such issues more closely. Pricing right now in North Aegean areas with regard to transport is extremely high unless people book their tickets extremely early. All other parts of the tourism experience, accommodation, restaurant prices, all these are extremely low. So it's the transportation that is very costly. I think we need new connections, basically, more air carriers, and that's one of the goals of our region. More companies undertaking these connections. And another issue of importance are cruises. We see this year cruises have started playing a more dynamic role, and we have them visiting our islands, which makes me believe that cruising is going to be a significant asset for our islands this year. Mr. Thanos, speaking about connections, What's the role of the regional authorities with regard to attracting airlines in order to have direct connections with the developed markets, such as those of the US, of the Near and Far East? And how prepared are we for such a prospect? Could there be a collaboration maybe put in place with the of other regional areas in our neighborhood, even in other countries, that would facilitate such access by air? The truth is, when speaking about such grandiose plans, we need to base them on a sustainable reality. We cannot ask for an airline from the US, for example, to come and invest here at such a great distance before them actually checking that this would actually be a sustainable effort, and that such a flight would work. We're doing this right now with Fraport. The regional governor was in Dubai a little while ago and talked to Flight Emirates in order to potentially use Thessaloniki as a hub connecting East and West. However, what this requires in advance is a very good level of preparation so that such an attempt could be sustainable. So, in collaboration with Fraport and the ministry, and excellent groundwork with regard to the regional authorities and together with the local business people, I think that we could achieve such a development. With regard to administrative borders of the regions, well, these are not important to tourists. For many years, we have tried to present Central Macedonia as one destination. Thessaloniki, Chalkidiki, Imathia, Pella, Kilkis, Ceres, so that we have a single image of many unique experiences, even outside the borders of the region. And this is done on a broader regional basis because we work together with the region of Eastern Macedonia and Thrace. We want to work, of course, with the regional authorities of North Aegean. We want to create potentially maritime Magnetia Odos through yachting and cruising. We also have Magnetia motorway covering the whole of the region that can be used to create various tourism narratives. And there are many local business people and others from abroad who begin their excursions from Central Macedonia and end them in other countries to the north of Greece. All the Interreg programs, for example, that we run have to do with cross-border collaborations that involve working with Cyprus, with Italy, Romania, Bulgaria, countries beyond our administrative border. But they are very important because that's the way tourism operates. Also, it's a good thing that regional authorities, another fact that needs to be taken into account, that regional authorities do not have any vertical authority. What do I mean by this? We want to create, let's say, a network of biking trails. We need to work with the forestry departments, but each forestry department has its own mentality and functions in an isolated manner. All these services, these authorities need to be extroverted, need to work together, because that is the way to promote tourism in a more dynamic way. And collaboration, of course, is essential, which is something that we are constantly striving for. There's also a network of deputy regions of tourism, which was very active prior to the pandemic, and we want to reactivate it so that we can see how we can promote our region outside its borders and what actions need to be taken with regard to the relevant infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Papamikos. I'd like to refer to an issue that has come up in recent years and mainly has to do with the hotel business and has to do with short-term leasing, which is something that is becoming more and more popular. Nevertheless, there's an ongoing debate about the relevant legal framework so that it is sufficient and so that the market operates in a smooth way. In my opinion, I think this discussion will continue for a long time because there are many conflicting interests. Of course, this is an issue that is not a Greek problem. It is a global problem, and there needs to be a global framework. And people need to decide whether they're going to take decisive steps to tackle it. The main issue has to do with tax evasion. We can't have people on the one hand having a business and paying taxes, and then on the other hand have somebody renting out 2 houses that he or she owns and paying no taxes at all.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being in this excellent.
Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ για την παρουσία σας σε αυτή την εκδήλωση που έχει οργανωθεί από τα 4 επιμελητήρια. Έχω την τιμή να είμαι συντονιστής αυτού του πάνελ. Θα ήθελα να καλέσω τον κύριο Τάσιο, ο οποίος είναι πρόεδρος του Τουριστικού Οργανισμού Χαλκιδικής και της Ένωσης Ξενοδοχείων Χαλκιδικής. Είναι επίσης μέλος του Ελληνογερμανικού Επιμελητηρίου και ιδιοκτήτης του ξενοδοχείου Φιλοξένεια. Επόμενος ομιλητής θα είναι ο Klaus Hildebrand, αρχισυντάκτης του περιοδικού FVW. Να καλωσορίσω εξ αποστάσεως την κυρία Ελένη Μιχοπούλου, καθηγήτρια διοίκησης επιχειρήσεων στο Πανεπιστήμιο του Ντάρμπι, και να καλωσορίσω επίσης τον κύριο Μιχάλη Χατζιβρέτα. Τι λέει ο καιρός στη Γερμανία? Καλησπέρα, μ' ακούτε τώρα? Πώς είναι ο καιρός στη Γερμανία, τι λέει ο καιρός? Ωραιότατος είναι, αλλά σίγουρα όχι τόσο καλός όσο στην Ελλάδα. Θα επισκεφτώ την Ελλάδα την επόμενη εβδομάδα, δυστυχώς όχι τη Θεσσαλονίκη. Θα πάω στην ΚΟ για μια εκδήλωση. Πολύ καλύτερος ο καιρός λοιπόν στην Ελλάδα. Κυρία Μιχοπούλου, ο καιρός στη Βρετανία, τι λέει? Βρέχει ως συνήθως, μακάρι να ήμασταν κι εμείς εκεί. Κύριε Τάσιο, έχετε το λόγο για 5 λεπτά.
Νομίζω έλλειψης ο ένας για τον άλλον σε αυτό το τουριστικό προϊόν της χώρας. Καλησπέρα, Klaus. Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen.
Κυρίες και κύριοι, καταρχάς θα ήθελα να συγχαρώ τα 4 διμερή επιμελητήρια για την οργάνωση του 5ου Συνεδρίου Τουρισμού με θέμα την τουριστική άνθηση της Βόρειας Ελλάδας όλο το χρόνο. Ο στόχος αυτός μας ενώνει όλους. είναι ρεαλιστικός απολύτως, καθώς μπορούμε να αξιοποιήσουμε τα σημαντικά συγκριτικά πλεονεκτήματα της Βόρειας Ελλάδας, το υπέροχο φυσικό περιβάλλον, την ιστορία, τον πολιτισμό, τη γαστρονομία, το ποιοτικό τουριστικό προϊόν και την οδική σύνδεση με ευρωπαϊκές αγορές. Αυτά τα πλεονεκτήματα μπορούν να στηρίξουν ένα νέο αναπτυξιακό σχέδιο για τη βιωσιμότητα του τουρισμού στη Βόρεια Ελλάδα τα επόμενα χρόνια. Είναι σημαντικό λοιπόν να δημιουργηθεί ένα στρατηγικό σχέδιο το οποίο θα υλοποιηθεί κατά τα επόμενα έτη με έμφαση στην ποιότητα, τη βιωσιμότητα, την προστασία του περιβάλλοντος, την ενεργειακή αναβάθμιση και τα λοιπά. Το στρατηγικό σχέδιο αυτό θα πρέπει να επικεντρώνεται στην πιο ολοκληρωμένη διασύνδεση των δυνατοτήτων της τουριστικής παραγωγής με τον τοπικό χαρακτήρα, ώστε να μεγιστοποιηθούν τα ωφέλη από τις τουριστικές ροές. Η βιωσιμότητα αποτελεί προτεραιότητα για μας. Πρέπει να προστατευθούν οι φυσικοί και πολιτιστικοί μας πόροι και να προβληθούν με έξυπνο και παραγωγικό τρόπο, παντιοτρόπως. Συγκεκριμένα, με την αλματώδη αύξηση της τιμής των καυσίμων, γίνεται ακόμη πιο επιτακτική η ανάγκη αλλαγής νομοθεσίας, ούτως ώστε οι τουριστικές μονάδες να αξιοποιούν τους ενεργειακούς πόρους με αποτελεσματικό τρόπο. Οι οδικές συνδέσεις με την κεντρική Ευρώπη, όπως και η βελτίωση των σημείων εισόδου στα σύνορα, αποτελούν επίσης προτεραιότητα. Στη Χαλκιδική έχουν γίνει πολλά και εξακολουθούν να γίνονται. Παρά τα αυτά, μένουν πολλά να γίνουν για να βελτιωθεί η καθημερινή ζωή σε αυτή την περιοχή. Συστήματα διαχείρισης απορριμμάτων και ανακύκλωσης, αλλά και καθαρισμού των υδάτων, βιολογικών καθαρισμών. Όλα αυτά με γνώμονα τη διαχείριση του κινδύνου και την κλιματική αλλαγή, ξεκινώντας από 5 ζώνες. Βιώσιμος προορισμός σημαίνει βιώσιμο τρόπο ζωής, ιδίως για τους μόνιμους κατοίκους και στη συνέχεια για τους επισκέπτες. Έχει φτάσει η στιγμή λοιπόν να προβάλλουμε εκ νέου τη Βόρεια Ελλάδα ως έναν προορισμό που αξίζει κανείς να επισκεφθεί κάθε εποχή του έτους. Αυτό σημαίνει προώθηση των δημοσίων επενδύσεων και διευκόλυνση των ιδιωτικών επενδύσεων. Τα κονδύλια από το Ταμείο Ανάπτυξης θα μπορούσαν να παίξουν σημαντικό ρόλο προκειμένου και να μεγιστοποιήσουν τον αναπτυξιακό τους αντίκτυπο. Ο τουρισμός μας αφορά όλους. Τα ωφέλη από τον τουρισμό μπορούμε να τα αποκομίσουμε όλοι. Η βιώσιμη φιλοξενία θα μπορούσε να παίξει καταλυτικό ρόλο για την ταχεία κοινωνική και οικονομική ανάπτυξη της Βόρειας Ελλάδας, με μακροπρόθεσμο όραμα, ρεαλιστικό σχέδιο δράσης και καθημερινή προσπάθεια. Μπορούμε να είμαστε βέβαιοι ότι ο τουρισμός στη Βόρεια Ελλάδα θα αντιμετωπίζει τις προκλήσεις και θα συνεχίσει να στηρίζει την οικονομία και την κοινωνία. Σας ευχαριστώ για την προσοχή σας.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tassios. I have
Σας ευχαριστούμε, κύριε Τάσιο. Έχω 2 ερωτήσεις να σας υποβάλω, αν μου επιτρέπετε. Αναφερθήκατε στο ενεργειακό κόστος. Το ενεργειακό κόστος είναι η νέα πανδημία για τον τουρισμό. Πιστεύετε ότι η βιωσιμότητα μπορεί να στηρίξει τον τουριστικό τομέα και ποιες θα είναι οι βασικότερες νομοθετικές παρεμβάσεις που θα χρειαζόντουσαν?
Φίλε Σωτήρη, as I have mentioned it in my speech,
όπως ανέφερα, θα πρέπει να αναπτύξουμε τις εξής πολιτικές. Πρώτον, Ταμείο Ανάπτυξης και δεύτερον, ένα νέο εθνικό πλαίσιο, στρατηγικό πλαίσιο αναφοράς για το 2021-2027, καθώς και νομοθεσία η οποία ανταποκρίνεται στις πραγματικές ανάγκες. Σε συνεργασία με αξιοποιώντας μάλλον τις εμπειρίες των ευρωπαϊκών χωρών. Κύριε Τάσιο, θα μπορούσατε να μας πείτε τι είδους υποδομές χρειάζονται για τη διαχείριση των απορριμμάτων και πόσο τομέας μπορεί να στηρίξει τη νέα νομοθεσία η οποία, με την βάση στην οποία επιβαρύνεται αυτός που ρηπαίνει. Σε κουζίνες αλλά και δωμάτια ξενοδοχείων έχουν στηθεί ειδικοί κάδοι, όχι όμως στην κλίμακα που θα έπρεπε. Σε συνεργασία με τους Δήμους θα μπορούσαμε να κατανείμουμε το κόστος. Για παράδειγμα, στις πολιτικές αυτές δεν προβλέπεται βραχυχρόνια μίσθωση. Παίρνω στον κύριο Χίλντεμπραντ, επί 25 χρόνια editor-in-chief στο γερμανικό περιοδικό FVW. Έχετε 4 λεπτά στη διάθεσή σας για να μας περιγράψετε τη δουλειά σας σε σχέση με το Travel Talk. Κάποιες σύντομες παρατηρήσεις για την γερμανική αγορά εν γέννη και μετά θα περάσω στη βιωσιμότητα. Η Γερμανία είναι η μεγαλύτερη πηγή επισκεπτών στην Ευρώπη, ιδίως στον τουρισμό leisure. Πριν την πανδημία, η Ελλάδα, η Γερμανία και το Ηνωμένο Βασίλειο ήταν φάμιλα σημαντικές αγορές. Ελπίζω να επιστρέψουμε στα επίπεδα τα προ-πανδημίας. 70 εκατομμύρια επισκέπτες, 70 εκατομμύρια μετακινήσεις με μέση διαμονή 13 ημερών. Πρώτος προορισμός για τη Γερμανία η Ισπανία, αλλά αυτό μόνο σε σχέση με τις αεροπορικές μεταφορές. Η Ελλάδα κατέχει την τρίτη θέση μετά την Ισπανία και την Τουρκία. Η Γερμανία αποτελεί πολύ σημαντική αγορά για τον ελληνικό τουρισμό. Τώρα, ας περάσουμε σε θέματα βιωσιμότητας. Αν ρωτήσετε τους καταναλωτές, θα προτιμούσατε βιώσιμες διακοπές, θα θέλατε να έχετε βιώσιμες διακοπές? Με βάση τις έρευνες, 60-70% των ερωτηθέντων λένε ναι. Αν όμως ρωτήσετε, θα ήσασταν διατεθειμένοι να πληρώσετε κάτι παραπάνω για τις βιώσιμες διακοπές σας? Οι περισσότεροι αρνούνται. Οι αεροπορικές μεταφορές είναι πολύ σημαντικός τομέας όσον αφορά τις εκπομπές αερίων του θερμοκηπίου. Μόνο το 2% των ερωτηθέντων δηλώνουν διατεθειμένοι να επιβαρυνθούν για να διασφαλιστεί η βιωσιμότητα. Το βασικό λοιπόν είναι να δούμε τη βιωσιμότητα όσον αφορά τον κύριο όγκο των τουριστών, τις οικογένειες κτλ. Οι Γερμανοί πάντως είναι διατεθειμένοι να πληρώσουν για την ποιότητα. Ελπίζω η φετινή χρονιά για την Ελλάδα να είναι κάτι αντίστοιχο με το 2019. Οι Γερμανοί κάνουν κρατήσεις για περισσότερες μέρες, κάνουν κρατήσεις σε καλύτερης ποιότητας ξενοδοχεία και η βιωσιμότητα θεωρείται κομμάτι της ποιότητας των διακοπών. Το ξενοδοχείο θα πρέπει να είναι ασφαλές, να είναι καθαρό, να τηρούνται τα υγειονομικά πρωτόκολλα. Αυτές είναι οι προτεραιότητες για τους Γερμανούς τουρίστες και όχι τόσο η βιωσιμότητα. Συνολικά έχουμε πάνω από 400 ετικέτες για θέματα βιωσιμότητας. Στη Γερμανία υπάρχει μια οργάνωση που ονομάζεται Fotubus. Σε συνεργασία με πολλές εταιρείες ανέπτυξε ένα μεγάλο σύστημα κρατήσεων, κάτι αντίστοιχο με το Amadeus. Όλες οι ετικέτες λοιπόν που πληρούν κάποιες προϋποθέσεις βιωσιμότητας έχουν ενσωματωθεί εκεί. Με τον τρόπο αυτό είναι εύκολο να διαπιστώσει κανείς αν πρόκειται για βιώσιμες διακοπές ή όχι. Στη συνέχεια θα παρασχεθούν και πληροφορίες για το συνολικό οικολογικό αποτύπωμα των διακοπών, τόσο ώστε να μπορεί να διαπιστώσει κανείς ότι μια συγκεκριμένη επιλογή είναι πιο βιώσιμη από μια άλλη. Για να μπορεί ο πράκτορας να πει ότι το ξενοδοχείο αυτό παρέχει βιώσιμες υπηρεσίες υψηλής ποιότητας, γι' αυτό και είναι κάπως πιο ακριβό. Στην Ισπανία πάνω από 400 ξενοδοχεία παγκοσμίως ασκούν πίεση για τη διασφάλιση μεγαλύτερης βιωσιμότητας. Στην Κρήτη θυμάμαι ένα ξενοδοχείο το οποίο διαφημιζόταν ως ξενοδοχείο με μηδενικές εκπομπές. Για τη Γερμανία όλες αυτές οι ετικέτες και πρωτοβουλίες έχουν συνδυαστεί. Η Ελλάδα θα πρέπει επίσης να τις συνδυάσει κάπως και να τις προωθήσει, να τις επικοινωνήσει. Αν θέλει να προβληθεί ως βιώσιμος προορισμός. Ο ήλιος, η θάλασσα, ο πολιτισμός, όλα αυτά είναι πολύ καλά. Γι' αυτό και μας αρέσει η Ελλάδα. Ωστόσο, δεν αποτελεί στην ουσία βιώσιμο προορισμό. Θα πρέπει οι πρωτοβουλίες αυτές να συνδυαστούν, να επικοινωνηθούν στο κοινό και να υποστηριχθούν μέσα από το marketing και την πρόθεση.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Είναι πολύ σημαντικό αυτό που είπατε όσον αφορά τη σήμανση και πώς μπορεί ένας πελάτης με τον τρόπο αυτό να ξέρει αν ένα ξενοδοχείο προωθεί την αειφορία ή όχι. Υπάρχουν πολλές μελέτες, για παράδειγμα, που έχουν γίνει από το Expedia που αναφέρουν ότι οι περισσότεροι θέλουν να ταξιδεύουν με αειφόρους τρόπους. Υπάρχουν όμως και άλλες μελέτες οι οποίοι δείχνουν, για παράδειγμα, ότι το κοινό σε κάποιες περιπτώσεις προτιμά την κοινωνική αειφορία παρά την περιβαλλοντική, social sustainability instead of environmental sustainability. Πώς το εξηγείτε αυτό? Ναι, η αειφορία δεν έχει να κάνει μόνο με το περιβάλλον, έχει και κοινωνικό κομμάτι, οικονομικό, περιβαλλοντικό κλπ. Στη Γερμανία ενδιαφέρονται πολύ για τα περιβαλλοντικά πρότυπα όταν πηγαίνουν διακοπές. Επίσης ενδιαφέρονται για το κοινωνικό περιβάλλον, πώς είναι οι συνθήκες εκεί που εργάζονται οι εργάτες, οι εργαζόμενοι, που ζουν, από πού έρχεται το φαγητό που καταναλώνται στο ξενοδοχείο κλπ. Και ακόμα πιο σημαντικό είναι οι συνθήκες αυτές όταν επισκέπτονται μια αναπτυσσόμενη χώρα στην Ασία ή στην Νότια Αμερική. Δεν είναι λοιπόν μόνο το οικολογικό αποτύπωμα και το περιβαλλοντικό το οποίο τους αφορά. Πιστεύετε ότι ο COVID ουσιαστικά ήταν κάτι το οποίο προώθησε την αειφορία? Πριν από το COVID φαίνεται να μην ήταν τόσο σημαντική η λέξη αυτή και τώρα μετά το COVID βλέπουμε μια τεράστια τάση για την βελτίωση της αειφορίας που προωθεί κάθε επιχείρηση. Ναι, έχει γίνει αυτό διότι το COVID μας κράτησε πίσω και μάλιστα αρχίσαμε όλοι να σκεφτόμαστε τη ζωή μας, το τι κάνουμε, με τι ασχολούμαστε κλπ. Βλέπουμε λοιπόν ένα πολύ ισχυρό comeback από τη μία της τουριστικής βιομηχανίας. Οι άνθρωποι θέλουν να ταξιδέψουν, να κάνουν ωραίες διακοπές, βαρέθηκαν να δουλεύουν στο σπίτι, να κάνουν τα παιδιά τους μαθήματα στο σπίτι κλπ. Στη Γερμανία η αειφορία λοιπόν έχει γίνει πάρα πολύ σημαντική και νομίζω ότι η Ελλάδα πρέπει να πάρει περισσότερα μέτρα για να δει τι κάνει η Ελλάδα σε σχέση με αυτό το κομμάτι. Στη Γερμανία πλέον το θέμα της αειφορίας είναι κάτι δεδομένο, το οποίο το συζητούν όλοι. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ και θα ήθελα να καλωσορίσω την κυρία Ελένη Μιχοπούλου, η οποία είναι αναπληρωτής καθηγήτρια στο Κολέγιο του Business Law and Social Sciences στο Πανεπιστήμιο του Derby. Καλησπέρα σας, χαίρομαι πολύ που βρίσκομαι κοντά σας και ευχαριστώ πολύ για την πρόσκληση. Θα ήθελα να συνεχίσω από τη συζήτηση που έγινε για το ευζήν νωρίτερα και για το wellness travel. Είναι κάτι το οποίο πραγματικά έχει τονίσει η πανδημία. Τα τελευταία 10 χρόνια υπήρχε μία τάση προς τα ταξίδια ευεξίας, τώρα όμως αυτό έχει γίνει πολύ πιο ισχυρή τάση. Αλλάζουν λοιπόν οι αγαρές και ο κόσμος έχει διαφορετικές απαιτήσεις. Η Ελλάδα έχει εξαιρετικές υποδομές και προϊόντα τα οποία θα μπορούσαν να χρησιμοποιηθούν στο πλαίσιο του τουρισμού ευεξίας. Και αυτό μπορεί να συμπεριλάβει όλα όσα συζητήθηκαν πριν. Για παράδειγμα, τη γαστρονομία, τη φύση, την θάλασσα και τον ήλιο. Κάτι το οποίο ήδη είναι τουριστικό πακέτο, αλλά και τα φυσικά πάρκα, τις διαδρομές ποδηλασίας. Το forest bathing είναι κάτι άλλο το οποίο προωθείται, οι επισκέψεις στα δάση στην Ελλάδα. Είναι κάτι το οποίο στην Ελλάδα ακόμα δεν το έχουμε συζητήσει καν, το forest bathing. Όμως θα μπορούσε να συμπεριλάβει δραστηριότητες οι οποίες να είναι ελκυστικές για διάφορες πελατειακές αγορές. Ο τουρισμός λοιπόν ευεξίας θα πρέπει να βρίσκεται στο επίκεντρο των προσπαθειών μας και θα πρέπει να κατανοήσουμε όλοι τι προϊόν έχουμε και πώς μπορούμε να το συσκευάσουμε έτσι ώστε να το πουλήσουμε πιο πετυχημένα. Για παράδειγμα, ένα από τα πιο σημαντικά χαρακτηριστικά της Φινλανδίας πέρα από τις σάουνες είναι το να πάει κάποιος να μαζεύει μανιτάρια. Υπάρχει λοιπόν μία απευθείας πτήση από την Ιαπωνία στην Φινλανδία και οι Ιαπωνέζοι πάνε στη Φινλανδία για να μαζέψουν μανιτάρια. Τους αρέσει να βρίσκονται στη φύση, να μαζεύουν μανιτάρια, είναι κάτι μαγικό για αυτούς, το λατρεύουν. Για τους ντόπιους η ίδια δραστηριότητα είναι σαν να πάει ένας Έλληνας να πίνει καφέ, δηλαδή είναι κάτι εντελώς συνηθισμένο. Όμως βλέπετε για μια άλλη αγορά φαίνεται κάτι εντελώς εξωτικό. Πρέπει λοιπόν να καταλάβουμε τι ακριβώς μπορούμε να προσφέρουμε, να το εκτιμήσουμε και να το δούμε μέσα από τα μάτια των πελατών μας, γιατί υπάρχουν εξαιρετικές ευκαιρίες εκεί έξω για τον τουρισμό ευεξίας, ειδικά τώρα που περνάει μια τόσο δυναμική φάση μετά το COVID. Και πρέπει υπό αυτό το φακό να δούμε όλες αυτές τις προοπτικές. Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ. Εξαιρετικά ενδιαφέρον αυτό που μας είπατε και η σύγκριση μεταξύ των δραστηριοτήτων των Φινλανδών και των Ελλήνων, μανιτάρια και καφές. Είστε ειδικοί σε θέματα εφορίας και βέβαια υπάρχει πάντοτε το ερωτηματικό αν η αειφορία μπορεί να βοηθήσει τον προσβάσιμο τουρισμό ή να δημιουργήσει προβλήματα, και αν πιστεύετε ότι ο προσβάσιμος τουρισμός είναι εξαιρετικά εξειδικευμένος ή αν μπορεί να μετατρέψει μια αγορά και να την προωθήσει. Αυτή τη στιγμή προσβάσιμος τουρισμός ίσως να είναι κάτι εξειδικευμένο, αλλά πιστεύω στο μέλλον αυτό δεν θα ισχύει. Θα επεκταθεί δηλαδή η προσβασιμότητα. Συνήθως συνδέεται με τα άτομα τα οποία έχουν προβλήματα κινητικότητας. Αυτό όμως δεν ισχύει. Πρέπει να καταλάβουμε δηλαδή ότι υπάρχουν δυσκολίες διαφορετικών τύπων. Όχι μόνο δυσκολίες κινητικές, αλλά και όρασης και ακοής κλπ. Το θέμα λοιπόν των παροχών του τουρισμού είναι πώς θα γίνει η εμπειρία αυτών των ανθρώπων πιο άνετη. Βέβαια πρέπει να λάβουμε υπόψη δύο θέματα. Πρώτον, ότι όσο μεγαλώνουμε Ακόμα και αν δεν έχουμε κάποια συγκεκριμένη αναπηρία, παρά όλα αυτά, όλοι έχουμε κάποιες ανάγκες για άνεση και όσο μεγαλώνουμε, αυτές οι ανάγκες αυξάνονται όταν ταξιδεύουμε. Για παράδειγμα, σκέφτομαι τη γιαγιά μου, η οποία δεν ακούει πολύ καλά, δεν μπορεί να περπατήσει πολύ καλά, οπότε έχουμε ουσιαστικά ένα συνδυασμό από αναπηρίες. Στη Δύση έχουμε ένα γεράσκοπο πληθυσμό, οπότε έχουμε τους baby boomers, οι οποίοι τώρα έχουν φτάσει στα 65-70, έχουμε δημογραφικό πρόβλημα, λιγότερες γένες, οπότε περισσότερα άτομα τρίτης ηλικίας. Επίσης, οι εξελίξεις στην ιατρική έχουν ως αποτέλεσμα να ζούμε περισσότερο, με αποτέλεσμα να έχουμε πολλά άτομα τρίτης ηλικίας με χρήματα και την ανάγκη να ταξιδέψουν, οι οποίοι όμως έχουν και ανάγκες πρόσβασης. Δεν πρόκειται για μια αγορά λοιπόν τόσο εξειδικευμένη, γιατί θα γίνει πολύ πιο γενικευμένη και αφορά και άλλες αγορές. Για παράδειγμα, εγώ έχω ένα 2χρονο παιδί. Πριν 2 εβδομάδες ταξίδευα μαζί του και είχα το καρότσι και τη βαλίτσα. Η ίδια δεν έχω κάποια αναπηρία και μπορώ να περπατήσω. Όμως είχα προβλήματα πρόσβασης, διότι όταν ήμουν μπροστά σε σκάλες ήταν δύσκολο να χειριστώ το παιδί, το καρότσι και την βαλίτσα. Είναι λοιπόν πολλές τέτοιες περιπτώσεις ανθρώπων που ταξιδεύουν με ογκώδες βαλίτσες, με παιδιά, με καρότσια. Λαμβάνοντας το λοιπόν αυτό υπόψη, αν εστιάσουμε σε άτομα που χρησιμοποιούν αναπηρικά μαξίδια, τότε βλέπουμε ότι ο προσβάσιμος τουρισμός ουσιαστικά μεγαλώνει την σεζόν, την τουριστική σεζόν. Κάποιος με ένα πικό καροτσάκι δεν θέλει να πάει σε μια εποχή του χρόνου σε ένα μέρος όπου έχει πάρα πολύ κόσμο, γιατί δυσκολεύεται στην μετακίνησή του. Οπότε θα έχει ως αποτέλεσμα ο προσβάσιμος τουρισμός η σεζόν η τουριστική να έχει μεγαλύτερη διάρκεια. Και αυτό είναι καλό και για τον προορισμό και για τις τοπικές επιχειρήσεις. Και είναι κάτι το οποίο είναι μια λύση για την σύντομη τουριστική σεζόν. Το θέμα λοιπόν της εφορίας και της προσβασιμότητας νομίζω συνδυάζονται και προχωρούν μαζί. Υπάρχει λοιπόν μάλλον αυτό το θέμα της προσβασιμότητας των επιπλέον επισκεπτών, αλλά και των υποδομών. Επίσης, ασχολείστε με την εμπειρία του ταξιδιώτη και τα κοινωνικά μέσα δικτύωσης. Ποια πιστεύετε ότι θα είναι το μέλλον των βιώσιμων ξενοδοχειακών εγκαταστάσεων και του τουρισμού όσον αφορά τον αντίκτυπο στα κοινωνικά μέσα δικτύωσης? Γιατί πολλές φορές υπάρχει και αυτό το φαινόμενο του greenwashing όσον αφορά τον αειφόρο τουρισμό. Η αλήθεια είναι ότι με εκπλήσουν και τα ευρήματα των ερευνών μου και των σπουδαστών μου. Οι millennials, οι νέοι του σήμερα είναι αμήλικτοι. Λένε αυτό που σκέφτονται, δεν ντρέπονται και έχουν απαιτήσεις. Είναι λοιπόν πολύ επικίνδυνο οι επιχείρησεις σήμερα να ισχυρίζονται ότι κάνουν κάτι το οποίο τελικά δεν το υλοποιούν. Γιατί είναι εύκολο κάποιος να το ελέγξει και να κάνει boycott σε εταιρείες, στις ετικέτες οι οποίες ψεύδονται. Μάλιστα, πολλοί νέοι βλέπουμε ότι δείχνουν ισχυρή αφοσίωση σε συγκεκριμένα brand. Οπότε, αν τα brands αυτά στηρίζουν αξίες τις οποίες στηρίζουν και οι συγκεκριμένοι νέοι, όπως η αειφορία για παράδειγμα, τότε το αποτέλεσμα είναι να είναι πιστοί σε αυτές και να μποϊκοτάρουν άλλες οι οποίες ψεύδονται σε σχέση με τα ζητήματα αυτά. Είναι πολύ επικίνδυνο αυτό το παιχνίδι για όποια επιχείρηση ισχυρίζεται ότι κάνει κάτι το οποίο τελικά δεν είναι αλήθεια, δεν ισχύει. Επίσης, εξετάζουμε όλο και περισσότερο διαφορετικές τυπολογίες τουριστών που έχουν διαφορετικές ανάγκες και θέλω. Για παράδειγμα, στα φυσικά πάρκα και αυτή τη στιγμή κάνουμε με τη Γερμανία, την Αμερική και το Καναδά μια έρευνα και εξετάζουμε πάρκα αυτά κατά τη διάρκεια του COVID. Επειδή δεν μπορούσαμε να κάνουμε πολλά πράγματα, επισκεπτόμασταν εθνικούς δρυμούς. Όλοι. Και αυτό δημιουργούσε προβλήματα βέβαια σε τοπικό επίπεδο. Και άρχισαν όλοι στα κοινωνικά μέσα δικτύωσης να λένε ο δρυμός αυτός είναι γεμάτος επισκέπτες. Ναι, αυτό ισχύει τότε γιατί λόγω COVID δεν είχαν άλλες επιλογές. Και άρχισε να υπάρχει μια σύγκρουση μεταξύ των παλιών επισκέπτων αυτών των χώρων και των νέων. Ο ντόπιος πληθυσμός άρχισε να γκρινιάζει και να θέλει να διώξει τους τουρίστες. Οι νέοι τουρίστες, οι νέοι επισκέπτες δεν ήξεραν πώς να συμπεριφερθούν στους χώρους αυτούς, ποιοι ήταν ο τρόπος που έπρεπε να συμπεριφερθούν σε αυτά τα σημεία φυσικού κάλους. Οι παλιοί επισκέπτες δεν ήθελαν τους νέους επισκέπτες γιατί χαλούσαν το προφίλ του τόπου. Οι νέοι επισκέπτες δεν έλεγαν ότι οι παλιοί παραδοσιακοί ήταν επιθετικοί και εχθρικοί. Απ' την άλλη υπήρχε άποψη ότι οι χώροι αυτοί είναι δημόσιοι και θα πρέπει όλοι να μπορούν να τους επισκεφτούν. Υπήρξε λοιπόν αύξηση επισκεπτών, αλλά δημιούργησε προβλήματα. Και αντί να υπάρξει πρόθεση της ανηφορίας ως αποτέλεσμα, το αποτέλεσμα ήταν ακριβώς το αντίθετο. Οπότε αυτό που εξετάζουμε τώρα είναι να δούμε ποιες είναι αυτές οι αγορές, πώς εξελίσσονται και πώς ελέγχονται. Όχι μόνο όσον αφορά το ποιοι είναι, αλλά τι κάνουν όταν επισκέπτονται τους χώρους αυτούς και τι χρειάζονται. Τους εθνικούς δρυμούς τους χρησιμοποιήσει σαν παράδειγμα, γιατί είναι ένας φυσικός χώρος επίσκεψης. Αν μιλούμε για αστικά κέντρα, τότε αλλάζουν τα πράγματα και χρειαζόμαστε άλλες υποδομές προσβασιμότητας, έξυπνες υποδομές κλπ. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ, κυρία Μιχαλοπούλου, για τις τελευταίες ερωτήσεις. Τώρα λοιπόν θα ήθελα να μιλήσω για τους επισκεψιμότητα θα λέγαμε από τουρίστες, δηλαδή όταν έχουμε υπερβολικό αριθμό τουρισμών σε κάποιο συγκεκριμένο προορισμό. Πώς μπορούμε λοιπόν να αντιμετωπίσουμε αυτό το πρόβλημα? Υπάρχει αυτό το πρόβλημα κυρίως από τον Ιούνιο στο Σεπτέμβριο. Τα μέτρα θα ήταν να έχουμε επέκταση φυσικά της τουριστικής σεζόν και όχι να είναι μόνο 4 μήνες η σεζόν. Από την άλλη όμως η αναρχή δόμηση, η έλλειψη πολιτικής θέλησης σε τοπικό επίπεδο σε σχέση με την αειφορία, όλα αυτά δημιουργούν πολλά προβλήματα. Δεν έχουμε πολυδημικό σχέδιο για το τουρισμό, επίσης όσον αφορά την χρήση συγκεκριμένων χώρων και των χώρων και τη χρήση του παραλιακού μετώπου επίσης δημιουργεί πρόβλημα. Θα μπορούσατε να μας πείτε 5 σημεία τα οποία θα μπορούσε κάποιος να παρατηρήσει ως επισκέπτης και να πιστεί ότι επισκέπτεται ένα ξενοδοχείο που προωθεί την αειφορία? Πρώτον, να έχει ένα πιστοποιητικό, sustainability certificate, και να το προωθεί, έτσι ώστε για παράδειγμα να ανήκει στο μητρό επιχειρήσεων που προωθούν την αειφορία. Το 70% των επισκεπτών που έρχονται από τη Γερμανία στην Ελλάδα το κάνουν μέσω πρακτορείων. Ένα τέτοιο σύστημα πιστοποίησης θα μπορούσε να οδηγήσει στην αναγνώριση αυτών των μονάδων. Δεύτερον, επικοινωνία με τους πελάτες. Πείτε τους τι κάνετε όσον αφορά τη διαχείριση απορριμμάτων, τι μέτρα έχετε, αν χρησιμοποιείτε ΑΠΕ. Στο κοινωνικό κομμάτι, πώς βοηθάτε την τοπική κοινότητα κλπ. Ενδιαφέρει πάρα πολύ τον κόσμο όλη αυτή η κινητικότητα στη Γερμανία, να βλέπουν πώς κινείται το ξενοδοχείο ολοκληρωμένα και πώς λειτουργεί. Θέλουν να περάσουν ωραίες διακοπές για 1-2 εβδομάδες, αλλά να δουν και ποιο είναι το συνολικό αντίκτυπο. Τρίτον, εκπαιδεύστε τον τουριστικό τομέα, τον πρωτοπράκτορα, γιατί αυτός πουλάει εντός εισαγωγικών το προϊόν σας στη Γερμανία. Τέταρτον, κάντε την αειφορία ένα μέτρο προώθησης του ξενοδοχείου σας. Οι διακοπές που σε ένα ανηφόρο περιβάλλον είναι σημαντικές. Πείτε τους γιατί είναι σημαντικό, πείτε τους γιατί δικαιολογεί την αυξημένη ίσως τιμή σας. Και πέμπτο, Το θέματα της αειφορίας να μην έχουν να κάνουν μόνο με ανησυχίες για την κλιματική αλλαγή και όλα αυτά τα ζητήματα και το τέλος του κόσμου. Η αειφορία να εμφανίζεται, να παρουσιάζεται ως κάτι πολύ σημαντικό, ενδιαφέρον, ωραίο, κάτι το οποίο πραγματικά προσδίδει αξία στις διακοπές σας. Ωραία, σας ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Όλα αυτά να μας τα στείλετε σε ένα email παρακαλώ, να τα μοιράσουμε σε όλους. Κύριε Μιχαλοπούλου.
Ποια είναι τα βασικά στοιχεία μιας καλής στρατηγικής δημοσίων σχέσεων, ένα αειφόρο ξενοδοχείο? Τι μπορεί να κάνει το ξενοδοχείο για να προωθηθεί? Τα όσα ακούσαμε μόλις από τον Κλάους θα μπορούσαν να ισχύουν και για το ξενοδοχείο. Το σημαντικότερο για μένα είναι να μην ψεύδεται ο επιχειρηματίας. Αν μπλέξεις με ψέματα, το πληρώνεις ακριβά. Διάφορα ξενοδοχεία καταβάλουν ειλικρινή προσπάθεια για την εξασφάλιση της αειφορίας τους. Η αειφορία έχει και πλάκα. Έχουμε ξεφύγει από τις ολλανδικές μελέτες οι οποίες μας έλεγαν μη πλένεις πετσέτες και εντάξει φροντίζεις την αειφορία και το περιβάλλον. Μπορούν να γίνουν πολύ περισσότερα σήμερα για την αειφορία. Μπορούμε επίσης να βελτιώσουμε τη συνεργασία με άλλα εμπλεκόμενα μέρη. Δεν πάει κάποιος σε ένα ξενοδοχείο απλώς και μόνο γιατί είναι βιώσιμο. Θέλει να πάει σε ένα εστιατόριο, σε ένα προορισμό, σε κάποιο αξιοθέατο. Η ανάγκη για αειφορία δεν καλύπτεται σε ένα χώρο και μόνο. Θα πρέπει να φαίνεται ότι υπάρχει ένα δίκτυο ομοειδεατών. Θα φας σε αυτό το αειφόρο εστιατόριο, για παράδειγμα, ή θα επισκεφθείς αυτό τον αειφόρο προορισμό. Δεν αφορά μόνο ένα ξενοδοχείο, δεν είναι one-man show. Απαιτείται συνεργασία με άλλα εμπλεκόμενα μέρη, τα οποία σέβονται τις ίδιες αυτές αρχές. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. Θα περάσω στα ελληνικά τώρα. Πριν δώσω το λόγο στον κύριο Χατζιβρέτα. Mr. Tasios, would you like to add something Greek about sustainability in destinations? In my presentation, and haven't heard what Ms. Michalopoulou said, it is clear unless we match what's going on inside the business and outside the business, we will not just fail in terms of sustainability, we'll fail overall. This is a big issue for the first and second level local administration. Whatever happens in a hotel or in a leased flat will have to be respected equally outside the business. This is why I said that the Recovery Fund and the next NSRF will also be invested in sustainability projects. If they're not spent on covering electricity bills over the next 4 months. So the true implementation of legislation is key. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome Mr. Hadzivretas. He's the director of the Business Consulting Department, Samaras and Associates, providing integrated consulting in the private sector and the public sector. Is ISO 9000 certified. Mr. Hadzivretas, I think to tie your point with what Mr. Tasios said, I'd like to ask you to tell us how will we put the resources in the best possible use. Good evening. I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to take part in this with the members of the 4 bilateral chambers. Speak about sustainability in the tourism industry and tourist establishments. We're actually talking about two different notions: the competitiveness of the tourist product and the tourist businesses that attract more tourists and lead to increased revenue. And on the other hand, the reduction of the operating cost for tourist businesses. All of this can be facilitated by means of targeted investment. The Greek state, being aware of the importance of the tourist industry for the entire economy, has put together a package of funding instruments that support such investments. The most important instrument is the development law. The latest one was passed last February, and we're still expecting the first regimes to be published. Strong changes in the positive direction compared to previous development regimes, facilitating necessary investment by tourist businesses. Most important advantages under this new bill of law are the following. There is a very strict time schedule for the evaluation of investment projects in 60 days, because planning and implementation of investments are linked, expediting the procedures of auditing, not by public services, but by means of independent auditors and engineers, stable cycles of a project presentation. For the first time after many, many years, a business is not expected to submit a comprehensive investment project. They may focus on specific sectors, energy savings, for instance, or the upgrading of the operation. The new bill of law provides for 13 thematic regimes so as to ensure a balanced funding for the entire economy. And last but not least, based on the latest EU map for the funding of regions, there were increases from 5 to 25% compared to the previous frameworks, up to 75%, depending on the region. And what are the eligible businesses? Excuse me, under these the aforementioned regimes, there are two specifically that are relevant for tourism. The regime of support to tourist establishments and the regime on alternative forms of tourism. Now, what are the eligible companies? Any commercial company in the country, Société Anonyme, partnerships, etc. Tourist projects no longer support individuals, but they do support mergers and companies that are registered with a general commercial record. What are the thresholds for very small micro businesses? 100,000 euros. For small businesses, 250,000 euros. For medium-sized businesses, 500, and for big businesses, 1 million euro. Now, there are various types of support that can be provided under this law, depending on the size of the business. Most important one being tax exemption on the profits of the business for 10 years, a 10-year period after the implementation of the investment. There are also subsidies or support for leasing installments, support for the cost of new jobs, new employment, and support for financial risk. However, only in the case of Central Macedonia receives 50 to 60% for large and medium-sized companies and 70% for small and micro companies. The maximum amount of support a company may get is 10 million euros per investment project, 20 million euros for company that submits numerous independent investment projects within a 3-year period, or if this is a group where all affiliated companies submit projects. These amounts can be 50% increased for such businesses. What are the investment projects tourist businesses may submit under the new law? The establishment or the expansion of hotel units, at least 4-star units, modernization of existing units, 3-star hotels minimum, provided that they have not received other types of financing support in the last 5-year period. Modernization of units that are reopened following closure, provided that their use has not changed. Establishment modernization of hotels and listed buildings. Establishment, expansion and modernization of condo hotels. For the first time, rooms for rent may also be eligible on condition that they are in traditional settlements in mountainous areas or on islands, the population of less than 3,000. 5 key rating and a capacity of at least 20 rooms. So-called condo hotels are also eligible, provided that they will not be sold while the investment, for a certain period of time after the investment has taken place. Spas or thermal springs, as well as wine tourism units, agro-tourism units, scuba diving units, etc. All of them are eligible. Building costs, the arrangement of surrounding area, hardware and software systems for digital upgrading are also eligible. This hard time of skyrocketing energy cost, businesses are also supported in order to use RES. or metering systems. That's the new framework in a nutshell. We know this is 10 minutes is not enough for a development law. My question is, how can businesses prepare themselves for such projects? Net metering is okay in the energy field, but there are areas that are not connected to the grid. So the law needs to be amended if we want to achieve sustainability. The government is taking measures to facilitate businesses. Now, as far as preparation goes, businesses should focus on their needs primarily, identify them before they proceed to investment projects, and following the identification, consultants prepare the necessary preliminary studies, financial and feasibility ones, and make sure that the paperwork is completed. Although procedures are being streamlined and simplified, it's the second part of your question. In addition to the development law, which is the main financing instrument, soon hope to see new tenders, both under the Recovery Fund and under the NSRF 21-27, times of opportunities for liquidity. I think we are moving on the right track. The interface of businesses and public services will lead to the desired results. Σας ευχαριστώ όλους, τον κύριο Κλάους, την κυρία Μιχαοπούλου και τον κύριο Τάσιο, όπως και τον κύριο Χατζιβρέτα.
Good afternoon. My name is Yannis Dimitris Malas, and I am editor of CNN Greece. And we are nearing the end of the 5th Tourism Conference. I am the facilitator of a very important and interesting panel on technology and tourism enterprises. This is a sector that even prior to the pandemic had started to acknowledge the importance of digital technology and had started moving this direction. So with regard to this topic and the current trends, we have a very interesting panel participating. I shall introduce the speakers, and then the speakers can self-introduce. So with us we have Mr. Ioannis Pandelidis, who is the Director of Doctoral Studies at the University of Brighton, Mrs. Katerina Stidaki, the Director of Capsule T Travel and Hospitality Accelerator of the Hotel Association of Greece, and Mrs. Daphne Tserveni, Co-founder and Chief Revenue Officer of Clio News Tours. So we have with us speakers who are strongly involved in technology and the tourism sector. So, starting with Mr. Ioannis Pandelidis, I would like to ask you to say a few words about yourself and what you do. Mr. Pandelidis, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much for the invitation, firstly. I assume the reason you invited me here today, there are various contents. There's broad content in my CV, but I had a survey that had to do with consumer behavior online, and I assume that's why you invited me to take part in this conference. I work with regard to tourism and hospitality and customers. I'm very interested because I come from the island of Leros. And I ended up in the UK like Ulysses, I would say, where I've been living for many years. My family used to own small hotel units and restaurants, so you know this topic very well, yes. And I know the problems of Greece, and I know what the current situation is in the sector today. So I have a very important question to ask you, but let me move to Mrs. Saridaki. Can you tell us a few words about the accelerator? Yes, good afternoon. Well, thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be able to meet online, at least, with Mr. Malas and all the rest of the panel members. We hope to be able to provide a message to those listening to us and watching us. The capsule T has already completed 3 years, and we are an acceleration of startups in tourism, an initiative of the Hotel Association of Greece. I have coordinated from day one. I work with startups and business and entrepreneurship since 2013 from a different position. But today we shall be speaking about tourism exclusively. So the Capsule T Accelerator has been in existence for 3 years. That's unbelievable. Yes, two of which were during the pandemic, of course, when things were hard for us all. That was a great achievement indeed. Mrs. Cerveni, tell us about Clio Muse Tours. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Clio Muse is a platform that is used for audio digital tours of archaeological sites, museums, important attractions, and city tours, mainly walking tours. And we provide this platform to tour guides and tourism professionals so that they can create their own digital audio tour that they can provide to their visitors and clients. We also undertake to sell these tours to tourists since we work with large online travel agencies such as Booking, Expedia, Tourism Aviator, Get Your Guide, etc., and some of the most important travel agencies. What we have been doing for the last 9 years in this respect is to make the tour experience more enjoyable when they do not choose to have a physical guide, but they choose to have a digital guide. We want to make the cultural content more accessible and more friendly to the client, to the visitor. So, trying to create new experiences is what we're talking about, and that's why I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Pandelidis. We see generally that technology has changed the situation in tourism. Can we talk about smart tourism? Maybe nowadays people are looking for new destinations and experiences, and different approaches are being used. What are the changes in the consumer choices of visitors, and how has the digital and technology impacted the search for tourism products? I think that we have gone beyond smart tourism. The greatest change that we have observed due to COVID is that a very large percentage of consumers have moved beyond the adoption of digital technology with regard to the way they live and the way they look for destinations at least 10 years ahead, which means that the market has changed. I would rather use the term wise tourism instead of smart tourism. Why? Because I believe that we should have adopted. Okay, let me start again. Let's suppose we're living in a kind of imaginary Greece that has adopted all the technology that can help us to develop tourism. What would be very important at that point would be to see how consumer behaviors have changed. because that is linked to the question you just asked. Some of the main elements have already been discussed. We had the very important panel on sustainability earlier. The issue of health has also been mentioned. Consumers want to reconnect with their family, their friends. If they live abroad and they want to travel to Greece, they want to find something safe that they can use to travel. Health is still a very vital issue. We've been talking for many years about quality tourism, but nowadays tourists want concrete evidence that they are going to visit a quality destination. The element of personalized services is also key. Different services for each person. In previous panels, people spoke about over-tourism, but I think that's also a word that we used in the past prior to tourism, prior to COVID. We're back to the numbers of 2019. And I don't think we can speak about over-tourism any longer. I fully agree with the view that we need to use technology nowadays so that people are offered healthy, safe, authentic experiences. And that is the way that we can extend tourism in Greece from 2 or 3 months to 6 or 7. We have excellent weather in Greece in October, for example. It's the end of the season in many destinations, whereas for most places, the season could easily extend from the beginning of May to the end of October. If we're speaking about the winter purely, of course, small or larger businesses would have to make significant investments in order to attract tourism during that period. Also, the personalized element has made changes to the way in which businesses operate. Why did Facebook purchase WhatsApp? That's one such example. Whereas Facebook had its own platform, it had Messenger. Why did it buy WhatsApp? Not because it wanted its technology, but it bought WhatsApp because WhatsApp already had millions of users and Facebook wanted the data in order to do targeted advertising. So many small-scale services or medium-scale services can take advantage of these dynamic search ads in order to present their own authentic products and do away with intermediaries so as to achieve slightly better rates. So look at dynamic search ads for those that interest you. Of course, we just found out that Elon Musk bought Twitter, and it would be interesting to see why he did that. Okay, thank you. So what you're saying is that the major change that is taking place has to do with personalized services. Is that right? And using data for personalized packages. Is that right too? Okay. I am repeating this because I'd like to ask Mrs. Cervendi this. You represent a startup that offers such personalized services. What changes do you see in travelers' behavior, and how are you responding to this? First of all, people are asking for flexibility and even same-day availability for any experience, which means that travelers do not plan ahead. They decide at the last minute, which means that all businesses should be able to cater to this last-minute availability request. So the most important step that we have taken in order to do this, when we have visitors who can't find the guides at the last minute or want to be more independent, because COVID has promoted individual tourism, well, in this case, we provide an alternative with regard to tour services. Nevertheless, I have also witnessed another aspect of these developments in physical tours, face-to-face tours with guides. People may additionally need digital guides, a combination of the two, and we provide those services as well. So we can cover the needs of a person who wants social distancing and to do the tour on their own, or even a hybrid experience with a physical tour and a digital tour. So apart from hybrid, we're also talking about personalized, which means that each visitor can choose their own option. Digital technology, at the end of the day, from what you say, can give you a more personalized dimension, right? Yes, and you can also combine the information that you receive through the personalized experience, and we collect anonymous data anonymously in order to see what is most popular with people, what they like, what they dislike, and then this information can be converted and used by us and by other tour companies so that they can adjust their products accordingly. I'd like to ask Mrs. Saridaki something now. We see that the companies are creating various innovative tools in order to address all these new needs. Through the Capsule T Accelerator, you see many companies that do so. We've seen many of these innovative tools in various presentations. However, to what extent do Greek hoteliers at the end of the day adopt and use these innovative products? Yes, I think that we've already mentioned many topics, but I'd like to focus on your question precisely because I don't think we have time to cover it all. Well, you know that the hospitality and tourism sector, but hospitality in particular, was very badly affected by the pandemic, which means that many investments never took place or were delayed. And this also involved digital solutions. On the other hand, all hoteliers are interested and monitor through the accelerator. That's why it's created to help the startups, to help hotels and our members to understand what possibilities these new technological solutions offer to the companies with regard to competitiveness, communication with their clients, etc. We know of many hotels, and through the fourth round of presentations and fairs this year, many meetings took place and agreements were signed between hoteliers who wanted to introduce new technologies into their business. A lot of SMEs showed interest. And I would disagree with Mr. Pantelidis. We can't talk about wise tourism, but about service smart tourism still in Greece. But it's important to hear what is happening. Our clients, our customers, our foreigners, they are familiar with all these new technologies, so we need to offer them as well. That's why there's the need, there's an interest, and we know many units that introduce such solutions and offer them. And we're very pleased to be able to function as a link between technologies, startups, and hotels. And we aim to do this even more intensively now that things have opened up. We want to present in Crete, for example, in October, to startups the opportunities that exist, so that all this is promoted and continued, and is also introduced in other parts of the country. So we're not yet into the field of wise tourism. We need to keep that in mind. Data is another very important element of this equation. We see that in the platforms, in the tools, in the business plans of companies. Everyone is interested in data that provides personalized answers, not by name, anonymously, as was mentioned, but nevertheless, through a platform, through software. A hotel, for example, should be able to know, for example, what is consumed when, one of the busiest times at a restaurant, at a pool, etc., so that they can better manage their time, their orders, customer traffic, etc.
So what you're saying, if I got you right, is that we are taking steps, the tourist industry, but there's a long way ahead. My question for Mr. Pandelidis now, how much is Greece lagging behind compared to competition when it comes to the adoption of technological tools? And what would your advice be for Greek tourist professionals? About lagging behind, it's a matter for each enterprise. Greece lagging behind compared to Turkey, Egypt, its competitors, Spain, Croatia, Turkey. Okay, I'll put it simply. I spoke about a utopian Greece earlier. Of course, I'm joking. And I'm hopeful. To put it simply, what we have is the Maslow pyramid, with Wi-Fi being at the top now, and personalization. If there was Wi-Fi everywhere in Spain, it was a must 6 years ago. Now, if you visit the islands, it will be hard to find free Wi-Fi. Some municipalities have done that. If you look at Malta and the progress they have made in the field of technology and compare Greece to Malta, then Greece is lagging behind compared to some parts of Turkey, maybe ahead. So, what would your advice be? I always give practical advice for small and medium-sized companies. Big companies do have the possibility of investing. I'm interested in accelerators, and I'm happy to hear that we have young people. The best technology we have are young people. Although there's a sort of brain drain in the field of tourism also. So, my first piece of advice would be use your domestic technology, the people you have, the human resources. Don't think that you are promoting your hotel or your rooms for rent. You must promote experiences. During the pandemic, there were smart people who got their cameras and started 4K guided tours. Now, if you have a small business and you have time, why not grab a camera, put up a channel on YouTube, and promote the beauties of your environment? When your customer arrives, you'll be among the first to be asked for information. So we're talking about changing mentality. Yes, you need to be more open-minded. People should not be so greedy. Don't expect gains immediately. Before the pandemic, if you look at the evolution of salaries and expenditure. The situation was tragic in the field of tourism. Relevant question for Mr. Vereni. From your own experience, how do Greek tourist undertakings use technologies through your partnerships? Are they interested? Are they not? You've been around for 9 years, I think. You're an old startup. We're no longer a startup, actually. Now, my experience from Greek tourist enterprises is good, generally speaking. Our company chose to collaborate with global businesses because we have a global footprint. We're not active in Greece only, we're active in 17 countries. And nonetheless, Greece is an important destination for us, and compared to our competitors, our ranking has improved significantly, particularly with the pandemic. People acknowledge the value of a digital experience. We're ready to embrace new solutions, new technologies. Not scared of them because we're afraid that they will replace what we've already built. They will reinforce it. I see that this attitude is changing thanks to COVID to a great extent. I'd like to ask Ms. Saridaki, if we can export the innovative tourist tools developed by Greek startups, and if we can, could you give us some examples? Of course we can. Goes without saying, because people who establish a startup in Greece have started from a wonderful tourist ecosystem. You have the right environment to build your product, and you have clients. So starting from Greece, you can move abroad. And the advantage is that you don't just move abroad as a poor relative. Everybody knows in across the world that Greece is a tourist country. So if you already have a big hotel chains or big businesses as your associates, you gain their trust. The pandemic did indeed help us open our eyes. Some hotels are now using applications that were not there in the past. I'm not talking about big hotels. They have been using such solutions for years. I'm talking about SMEs, boutique hotels that need support in order to become more competitive. So yes, they can, and there are many examples apart from Clear News, which is not in the capsule, but we are the same ecosystem. Ferry Hoppers, that is now operating in 10 countries, not just in Greece. It started 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was earlier. But their activities have become more intensive. And they made investments, they received funding from major VCs. Is trip around with many customers, both in Greece and abroad. The workathlon, working mostly with hotels, but are expanding their activities in the Middle East. And welcome pictures. I don't want to omit any of them. Some of them are for hotels, others for transportation. Welcome as a driver picking you up from the airport. 20, 30 countries or more. Clio Muse is in the guided tour sector. We have complaint management applications on the social media. Clisto, that is now active in the Caribbean. There is a product indeed, and we need to support them to expand their activities globally. Give us several examples. So let us close it on a positive note. We're not lagging behind, apparently. Thank you very much. We're pressed for time. Try to make this panel as interesting as possible. I hope we will have more opportunities to discuss longer. Thank you to our audience. We tried to have an interesting discussion. And now for the last part of the conference, let me give the floor to Mr. Nikolaos Bakatselos, the president of the American-Hellenic Chamber of Commerce. Dear members of the bilateral chambers, ladies and gentlemen, we're wrapping up the proceedings of, or rather after the last panel, we are moving towards the end of the fifth tourism conference. This year's event, we had the opportunity to discuss a series of topical themes and the general landscape in the sector and how a country can stand out, all the way to the significance of international brands and sustainable practices. We've also seen how technology may provide solutions to businesses and destinations, and our priorities in the plans of in the regional plans for Central Macedonia. This does not stretch to the point to state that the country, particularly northern Greece, in spite of many challenges, has the opportunity and capacity to revive its tourist market and outdo its previous excellent performance. We'll hear more about this from the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Ms. Sofia Zacharaki, whom I'd like to welcome. Ms. Zacharaki has given a fresh air at the Ministry, promoting infrastructure work, among other things, related to sea and mountain tourism, marinas and ski resorts. She has actually acknowledged in practice the added value of the intangible cultural heritage, particularly in culinary tourism and food and wine tourism. She has also contributed to promoting sustainable tourist development as a priority of the ministry by means of alternative forms of tourism and the extension of the tourist period, for the extension of the tourist period. One of the main priorities for the Deputy Minister has been the improvement of tourist education, reskilling and upskilling employees and professionals. At this point, I'd like to add that all of us need to have tourist education, since all of our Greek citizens can contribute to the image of the country and its further establishment as a hospitable destination. I'd like to welcome the Deputy Minister with his thoughts, Ms. Haraki. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your invitation. Thank you to the bilateral chambers of commerce, which set the tone for current affairs of this day of a restart in tourism that needs to span a whole range of axes. And I shall try and touch upon some of these tonight. I am very happy to be here in person today We had all the online connections that I have been listening to, which have provided very important arguments to the discussion that was held here today. And I would like to thank once more the four chambers for this opportunities. I think that our collaboration is sure to continue and become even broader. The element of tourism education, as Mr. Bakatsalos mentioned, and the synergy that is required not only for employees but also for executives through the Chambers of Commerce is vitally important and can be taken one step forward. Since December 2019, we have a legal tool available that can facilitate such synergies. And I think that we need to look into this further in order to examine the prospects that exist for collaboration in this respect with regard to the training of personnel on a broader scale. So, congratulations for the organization of this fifth tourism conference, focusing on issues of interest to northern Greece and Thessaloniki. These discussions have always been very fruitful, as well as all the initiatives undertaken by the bilateral chambers of commerce that add this breath of fresh air to public dialogue and create a significant contribution and opportunities for the exchange of views that can lead to co-formulation of policies for our greater benefit. The people from the tourism sector present here today and those watching us online, dear friends, colleagues, and associates in this effort to upgrade and help the recovery of tourism, welcome. I believe that tourism underwent, due to the pandemic, the greatest crisis of its history. After 2 years of the pandemic, the global energy crisis and the war in Ukraine marking the end of Europe into a very difficult, challenging period. Tourism, once more, is at the forefront, with our concerns fully justified in this respect. Nevertheless, more than ever before, I think that we need to keep a cool head and to be even more decisive with regard to the hard work that needs to be done. I'd like to add at this point that this was precisely the message by our Prime Minister, Mr. Mitsotakis, when he visited our ministry. And together with our Minister, Vasilis Kikilas, they set the tone, the direction to be followed, which began with Haris Theoharis and continues with Mr. Kikilis. Hard work, broadening and identification of new markets, and a focus on infrastructure and human resources. This is the overall trend and the instruction given by the Prime Minister not to stop for 1 minute, not to expect, not to work on a seasonal basis, but 12 months a year, so that we can give all regions of Greece the opportunities they deserve with regard to the hospitality sector. No solution can be easily implemented or be taken for granted from all that we discuss here today. Tourism is a sector that is on an upward course and has its own inexhaustible forces functioning under very difficult circumstances today. And that might be the reason why in recent years, particularly due to the successive crises, tourism has become a crucial element for development and an integral part of the national front with regard to overcoming crisis. I believe that the pandemic was a period that highlighted the dynamic role that the sector can play through its resilience, through the strength it has shown and its immediate reflexes, which enable it to adapt to unprecedented challenges. Let's look at the data from last year. Over 10 billion, almost 11 billion, was the contribution of tourism to the Greek economy. It was a positive development and a surprise for everyone involved, even for us, potentially, who at the beginning of the season witnessed successive crises and additional difficulties. For example, the Delta variant just before June, when we were expecting a strong recovery in bookings. So initially the goal was set and was achieved and overcome, or rather even more superseded And this was a prospect that led to an achievement that led to more revenue for Greek families, more employment at the Ministry of Labor through the program Tourism for All for domestic tourism. And despite the difficulties that had to do with payment, more than 200,000 Greek people were helped to travel all over Greece. And we're pleased to announce that we will have a new program boosting domestic tourism that we want to plan in order to be more flexible and less bureaucratic so that it helps Greek people recognize and the opportunities that exist and get to know parts of Greece through a kind of freedom pass, an intangible card that will not require the bureaucratic procedure that causes problems for business people. More information on this and its technical aspects will be announced over the next few weeks. I'd also like to remind you of a collective gain of the tourism sector, which had to do with the huge development in the fourth quarter of 2021. This fills us with pride, but it is also a starting point for the future and mapping out future prospects. Despite the difficulties identified, the Greek government very rapidly and responsibly has responded to the need to take action and continue to promote our national interests in a practical and direct manner, both through support measures of many billions provided to households and businesses, through proposals put forward by the Prime Minister to our European partners, to the EU and internationally in order to exceed challenges which are not national in character, strengthening the position of employees in terms of employment in a way that will ensure that all people are protected at this difficult point in time. So how has this year begun? I'm sure that the details have already been provided in order to give a summary of the current situation. So pre-bookings in January, February were very positive and higher than 2019. This is that began in many areas earlier than other years. Airlines that are planning more seats for Greece and more destinations with larger capacity airplanes, and we're waiting to see whether these seats will be filled. The situation is being monitored throughout. Some of the strongest players in the tourism market are expecting many more bookings. Travel operators have already spoken about this since the end of the previous years, and we have new also connections with the U.S., hundreds of seats booked from the U.S., about 470,000. France, Germany, Italy, once again, will support us. People who love to come to Greece, putting us almost at the top of their preference list with regard to bookings. And, of course, very strong tourism traffic from Romania. Waiting to see what's going to happen with Poland also, which is a market that we have invested in recent years. And we have achieved much. We want to see how it will develop. And also neighboring countries with road tourism, where through the lifting of measures and PLF and digital certificates are expected to run more smoothly without delay, so that a person that decides to drive to Greece has a positive experience from the first minute. What we also observe, and I'm sure you've seen in the fairs that you've participated in, is that there's a strong interest from other countries as well, such as Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, who want to revisit these destinations or come to them for the first time. So we need to grasp this opportunity and bring these markets to Greece with direct flights and offer them new destinations to experience. Another very important element added to all of this is the fact that Thessaloniki this year is considered a great example with regard to cruising. We have a multiplication of the expected arrivals of cruise ships at the port of Thessaloniki, and we have a quality element of home porting, that the port is used both for departure and arrival. So people will be joining a cruise from Thessaloniki and also be getting off the ship in Thessaloniki, which will quadruple the revenue for the local community. Another very important element that's gaining ground is conference tourism and fairs, particularly in the city and all over Greece, can lead to 7 or 8 times higher earnings compared to other forms of tourism that we all need. Our government will continue to support all these efforts in every possible way, and we are open to further proposals in order to promote this form of activity, which has been hit hard in recent years. So, despite the initial shock and the war, we see that the dynamic start this year has once again been reinitiated. We had a large percentage of arrivals at the beginning of the year and in the past few years, and we're waiting to see how the markets will diversify with regard to the impact of the war in Ukraine and our visitors from Ukraine and Russia. Very soon, our minister will visit Romania with many associates and representatives, Serbia and Germany. This will be a constant struggle. I'm going to go to Montenegro next month. This is a constant struggle and effort in order to achieve the best outcome for all parts of Greece, and mainly those who have been hardest hit due to the loss of tourists from Ukraine and Russia. On the other hand, we see that people are really keen to come to Greece from traditional markets and new markets. And one such example was the Orthodox Easter period and the Catholic Easter period. We have a record number of arrivals and visits, both in our own villages and cities that we have visited, and also in tourist results. There were many last-minute bookings and many walk-in visitors who went to the hotels at the last minute, wanting to enjoy some days of leisure. There was also a large number of arrivals from abroad who visited Greece during the Catholic Easter. A large number of people from America, the UK, Israel, Spain, Romania, and Italy. Another very important issue that we're monitoring this year has to do with the average expense by tourist. Average spending. So as compared to 2019, 2021, we had an increase of about 27% in average spending. We're going to monitor the situation again this year. The times are difficult, but we want to see whether this will continue. That is, how we can improve the quality of services provided and thus achieve higher average spending rate by those visiting our country. These are both priorities for our ministry in order to activate all relevant agents. And we have mobilized certain tools in order to achieve this, which have to do with the relevant legislation. Those monitoring the legislation put forward by the ministry see that there's the legislation on management of destinations together, which has to do with the private partner public partnership. We have also activated and have laws with regard to the expedition of processes for maroon tourism, for linking primary and secondary sector and tourism, the new Société Anonyme for spas and thermal springs, and individual initiatives for special forms of tourism. Those who are following our steps will see that in the last year and a half, we have undertaken various initiatives for gastronomy, wine tourism, well-being tourism, ecotourism, mountainous tourism, and a specific campaign for the first time taking place in Greece with the title Greece does have a winter, or live Greece in the winter too. Religious tourism, diving tourism, biking tourism, and hiking tourism, various forms of specialized tourism which enable us to experience the authentic elements of Greece, extend the season, and give our visitors these particular experiences that we are aware of, but we want them to also live. And these opportunities are also boosted through the Recovery Fund. You shall see that more than 320 million euros are going to be used over the forthcoming period for mountainous wine tourism, dining tourism, trails, hiking trails, shelters, marinas, gastronomy tourism, and digitization and accessibility for the sector. I've left at the end tourism education, which is something that Mr. Bakaselos also mentioned. So, with the support of the various agencies and the European Commission, we have secured 500,000 used to redesign tourism education. We want to create a tourism academy that will encompass all our schools to also bring a English-speaking tourism department to Greece so that people can come and study here. And more than 46 million will be used for subsidized seminars for more than 20,000 subsidized unemployed persons who would like to work in the sector. In Thessaloniki, I would like to thank the directors of the tour guide of Thessaloniki, the tourism school of Mechaniona, and all the tourist-related educational establishments, because every day they try to provide a higher quality tourism education to students. It is a difficult field. I don't want to idealize it, but nevertheless, we want to connect them with the current situation in tourism so that the students are better prepared for the reality they will come face to face with in the employment sector. So, my final message, synergy, joining forces. I think that's what is the message also through this collaboration with the four chambers. My wish is that not only will we overcome the pandemic, but even overcome the best of our expectations for the future. Thank you all, and I'd like to greet Mr. Kalafadis, the minister who is here tonight. I hope I didn't take up too much time. I only said half of what I was planning to say.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zacharaki. Indeed, with so many forms of tourism and with a special emphasis on education, as you mentioned, we can indeed have year-round tourism in our region. Let me invite Minister of Macedonian and Thrace, dear friend of all of us, Mr. Kalafadis, to come to the podium to declare the closing of the conference as a representative of the political authorities. Minister. It's a great pleasure to be here for many reasons. First of all, because the topic of the conference has been under my capacities as a sectoral minister for new democracy when I first joined the party, and I realized how hard it is to put together a unified long-term tourist plan. I'm also pleased because I'm among friends. Bilateral chambers have on many occasions embarked on developmental activities and contributed to such initiatives in Thessaloniki. Number three, welcoming here a very good friend of mine. And those of you who know me know that I'm not a man of compliments. Sofia is truly working hard. She's in love with her job, and she's very effective. I think with Vasilis Kikilias, we can expect more steps over the period to come. So this fifth tourism conference has come to its close. After the pandemic, 2-year gap during the pandemic, I know that the initiative of the 4 bilateral chambers was actually very important. In any case, we're moving to a new normal. People can now travel and satisfy their need for traveling to new tourist destinations. The policy applied by the government, Prime Minister Mitsotakis, did indeed create added value in the country and upgraded Greece brand name. Based on all indications, there will be a dynamic. This will be a dynamic summer with record arrivals. The first indications are very encouraging. According to Eurobank forecasts, we have 20.7 million arrivals this year. The earnings being 15 billion euro. Arrivals from the Balkans by road are also important to us, and we hope very soon to embark on an important effort to construct new entry gateways. The port of the city will become home port and a hub for cruise tourism. 189% up the arrivals of cruise ships. Recently, with concerted efforts by the government and the local authorities, and I can see people from the region of Central Macedonia, the municipality of Thessaloniki, joining forces, we can make many success stories, rather. So with concerted effort by the government and the city in the UNESCO network of culinary tourism, we have promoted our ability to win a bigger share through promotion of special and alternative forms. Our city will become a year-round destination and destination for cruise. We believe that this summer will be highly profitable for the city, Macedonia and Thrace, for Greek economy, professionals in the field of tourism, as well as those employed in tourism. At the same time, it is important for the government to promote social tourism schemes for our fellow citizens who are facing economic hardship to be given the opportunity to travel to other parts of the country. Tourism will contribute to the openness and extroversion of the country, become a hard pillar for regional development and restart of our economy. Thessaloniki, Macedonia and Thrace are improving infrastructure attracting new investment and creating new employment. Motorway E65 and a number of port projects add to the capacities of Thessaloniki, Macedonia and Thrace. The flyover in Thessaloniki, improvement of the 6th pier at the port, road links, metro, refurbishment of the Thessaloniki International Fair will help us improve the position of Thessaloniki on the map. We are working together with the Ministry of Tourism, the co-competent ministries, the authorities, chambers, etc., so as to turn Thessaloniki and Macedonia and Thrace overall into strong brands, showcasing their ability to claim significant shares in established and developing markets. Of course, improve the quality of life for both residents and visitors. This brings me to the close of my presentation, and I'm certain that the conclusions from the conclusions of this conference will guide tourism in our country successfully. Thank you, Minister. We've come to the end of this 5th conference. I'd like to thank the speakers, panelists, sponsors, facilitators, and all of you for the time and patience. Your reward will be a farewell cocktail. Thank you very much. See you next year.